right, good evening, everyone. It is that time, so let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Carrie, could we get a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Commissioner Alvarez?
Here.
Co-Chair Baker?
Here.
I'll note that Commissioner Kaplan is out tonight. Commissioner Cole?
Here.
Commissioner Kerala? Here. Co-Chair Pickett?
Here.
Commissioner Tamimi? Here. Ex officio Kate Snow? Here. Ex officio Sawyer Val? Here. And Michael Villalobos is not in attendance yet.
Thank you, Carrie. Our next action item is to approve the agenda for tonight. I do want to note that there was some expectation of an agenda item around an ordinance, the proposal of an ordinance for the City of Davis. That is no longer an agenda item, although later on there will be a chance for the subcommittee that's been working on that to comment. We've gotten many public comments about it. We really appreciate that. Please know we continue to work on it, but it's hit some snags that we're going to have to work through later on in the meeting. Do I have anybody who would like to propose an approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we move on to item number 3, brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and liaisons. Do I have any commissioners who would like to make an announcement? We have plenty to do tonight, so no pressure, just if there's anything you want us all to know.
Yeah, I would like to thank anyone who was able to join us at the Martin Luther King Celebration Day. It was wonderful. It was a great event, and we really enjoyed ourselves. And I think that everyone who was there really got to learn, enjoy, and participate in something that has been wonderful for the year, over the years for the city to host. Thank you.
I'll have more to say about this later, but I want to thank the committee that put it on, too, Lanny and Felix, most notably, and others as well. Carrie was appropriately recognized during the event, and thank you, Carrie. But we'll talk about that a little bit more, too.
All right, any staff communications?
Well, I was just going to echo Felix's comment and say thank you to the planning committee for the hard work that you put in. It was a full house with, I think, about 350 people in attendance, so well done. And separately, I wanted to let everyone know that we'll be recognizing Black History and Futures Month with a proclamation on February 3rd at the City Council meeting.
I have one question, really quick. Sorry. I know that we just voted for the agenda, and I apologize. I should have brought this up during the agenda voting. I just realized that the Sanctuary City Subcommittee focused on institutional allies, which is a subcommittee that's going to give an update regarding the ordinance, is later in the evening. I had thought that it was all going to be kind of put together with B, so that the folks who are here for the forum could potentially hear that. I mean, anyone can stay longer, but I'm just noting that it's kind of at the end of the committee updates. So I don't know if we can go back to updating that.
Okay, so you are suggesting reopening of item number 2 and the possibility of moving, in light of the fact that there might also be people here for the Tom High Quinn Awards. I would hate to put that off too much further. Could we just move that committee update to be the first committee update rather than the last committee update?
I think whatever we can do to move it up closer is great.
I think that's still part of the same item, so we can do that in whatever order we want without having to make any procedural changes. So
That's great. Amazing. Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, good suggestion. Okay, and any liaisons that have anything to report? Okay, it seems like not. So that is great. Let's move on. And We are going to have public comments, and I will say a few things about that because there are a lot of people in the room. So we generally offer 3 minutes of public comment, and that happens for every agenda item. Were everyone here to public comment for 3 minutes on every agenda item, we would be here for a very long time. So I would like to request 2-minute public comments, and I'd like to be very clear about when public comment might be most appropriate. So if you have a general public comment about anything at all related to or not related to agenda items, you are absolutely welcome to do it right now during public comment. When we move on to the forum item, we will have the forum first, and it will be followed by public comment. So that way you could observe the entire forum, hear all the presenters, hear the HRC dialogue about it, and then comment at that time. So if you're here for the forum and you would like to reserve your public comment until that moment, adjust it according to what you hear here, you're welcome to do that. If you would like to comment now, you're also welcome to do that. So just to be clear, there are multiple opportunities to participate in public comment, and we are going to do 2 minutes.
Lainey, can I just ask a clarifying question on that one? Will all public comment for every single item tonight be 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Given that we have interpretation available during the meeting tonight, it might be helpful for people to be reminded that if we speak more slowly and add pauses to our comments, it will make it easier for interpretation to happen.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate that. I'm a notable fast talker, and I will behave myself.
Thank you, Kate. And that actually reminded me of one more thing to note. If people are coming up during public comment and need an interpreter to join them at the podium, then they are allowed double the time, 2 minutes for their speaking and 2 minutes for their interpreter to interpret.
Sounds perfect. Okay, with all that being said, I would love to invite public comments.
Hello, Alan Burst, the Lorax for general public comment. Upstanders. We had the Martin Luther King Day thing on Monday. It was amazing, all these people, and there weren't so many white people, so many people of all different races. Everyone's standing up for one another. This is how we create community. And when you watch the things in Minnesota, with the ice coming in, the people that are upstanding are the people's neighbors. The people that they're just randomly called because they happen to live next to the event. They stand up, video, they clap, they honk their horns and whatnot. It's just, you just happen to be called. We all have to stand up for one another. And what happened at the Martin Luther King Day was a representation of how we stand up in this community. We all need to come together. We all need to talk. We all have our struggles. I was on a tape of Zoom meeting with the Jewish Reform Action Committee, which is the political arm of the religious movement. And they talked about how the Jewish community stood with everyone in the Minnesota community, even though they had some conflict after October 7th. They said they were welcome back, we were welcomed in, we were coming. And that's the way we win this day, because we have a common enemy. We are a pluralistic society, and as soon as we destroy that, we lose everything in this country. We become another ethno-state. And we know how that works. We need to stand together. So thank you for this, and thank you for the Shabbos Day. We're all going to come out, and this committee is really the place that brings it all together. This is the most essential committee in the city at this point to keep us all together and hold us together during this time of stress by ICE and the people who let it divide us. Thank you so much for all you do. Love your neighbor and show up for them.
Alan Miller. Did you hear? Did you hear? Gemma DiCristo got a slap on the wrist. Blunder of blunders, hyperbole, hyperbole. UC Davis shat upon Jews once again. DiCristo declared hyperbole, hyperbole. Got a slap on the wrist from the chancellor's pen. Blunder of blunders, hyperbole, hyperbole. Death to Israel, shouts a student on the quad. Jewish students mourning 10-7 day just feet away. Chancellor May's advisor says, successful day. A swastika on a silver box for all to see. That was just hyperbole. Campus RSO praised 10-7 as a victory. That was just hyperbole too. But of all hyperbole, large and small, the second most ridiculous one of all is the savior of Davis Jews today. Is UC Davis Chancellor Gary May. Blunder of blunders, hyperbole, hyperbole. Death to Jews, said Imam in an Arabic sermon. They cleared the encampment and what they found upon the ground. The only good Zionist is a dead one. When mass protesters shouted, we want no two-state, yow! That was just hyperbole. When mass protesters shouted, Hamas, kill 100 more now! That was just hyperbole too. But of all hyperbole, large and small, the most ridiculous one of all is that the MAPA report could ever be balanced, fair, and Jew friendly. Thank you.
A little hard to follow that one. I'm not going to sing, you'll be glad to hear. My name is Nick Buxton. I just wanted to raise two issues. The first was that I was hoping to come tonight to see a draft of the sanctuary ordinance. And we'll be discussing that, and I'm disappointed it's not been produced, so I just wanted to have an update on that and see the status. I do think at this time in America's history, it's really important that Davis stands really strongly and firmly, not just in words, but in action, with immigrant communities that are under attack. So I really hope that the HRC and the city as a whole can push the sanctuary ordinance forward. And the second thing on the MAPA report, I'm disappointed that, I just want to express I know this isn't in your power right now, but I'm disappointed that the city is not moving forward on this. It's been very delayed. Basically the message seems to be that the Middle Eastern, Arab, Palestinian population here doesn't matter to the city, when they're not even going to discuss or put on the agenda some of the really sensible and I think progressive and important recommendations that report made. So I just think that's something that should be also advocated by this community to the city, that this is important work. I'm not saying of course there's controversy around it, as we've just heard, but there are some really sensible recommendations there about how to move forward on this, and they're not even being discussed. And by failing to do that, we're basically saying certain communities in this town don't matter. And I think that's really a major concern for this particular commission. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Daniela Telles, proud resident or former resident of the city of Davis, also formerly undocumented women here. I want to comment on the ordinance, and I would like to say, I know we want to support our undocumented and immigrant neighbors beyond symbolic support. My question for us as a community, as council members, is are we ready as a city and as involved community members to fully commit to assume the responsibility of supporting our undocumented community, very visibly supporting them when ICE comes knocking at our doors, knowing that the stakes are higher these days. I know that visibility and lawfulness does not always equal to practical, actionable support strategies. What I do think we need is we both need the speed to respond to the crisis at hand and an exit strategy when violence escalates or safety matters. The safety of the people that are going to put themselves on the line to defend their neighbors matter. And if that is not going to be addressed by the ordinance, then I think it needs some revisions, but I did not get an opportunity to review the text. So here we are. I really do wish that we have had this conversation during Obama's administration, perhaps Biden's, so that we wouldn't face the dilemmas we're facing here today. Long story short, I would also like to invite our council members to invest a little bit of time on reviewing the City of Davis website, because when I go to it as a resident of the city, I do not see or feel supported just by that simple introduction, right? So we have encouraged us to revise the website to at least have that Chicago fire in it, right? And I know the stars are not everybody's, cup of tea, but that's all I have to share for today. Thank you all for listening, and you have my support, commenting, and continuing to show up. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Last chance for public comment right now. Again, there will be more opportunities.
Hi, my name is Maria Isabel Mandujano. I want to share a few words to the community. As a promotora, I raise my voice in solidarity with the undocumented immigrant community, with a focus on safety, support, and hope. My commitment is to walk alongside families, share reliable information, and promote access to resources that protect health, rights, and well-being. Through knowledge and collaboration, we build safer, more informed, and more united communities for everyone. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further public comment, let's proceed so we can get along to the forum that many people are here for. We move on to item 5, the consent calendar. And consent calendar is all stuff that is considered routine, requires no discussion, and that we expect to have unanimous support. The only thing on it today is our meeting minutes from the last meeting. Any response to that anybody needs to make?
I would move approval of the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. All right. And we move on to our regular items. Item number 6, and our regular items will be over today's meeting. The first one is the Day of Remembrance film screening. So for the past 2 years, the City of Davis and the Human Relations Commission have co-sponsored a free community film screening in observance of the Day of Remembrance for Japanese American incarceration during World War II. It has been a beautiful event in the past, and this year's film, Kinsukoroi, will be screened on February 19th. So the commission is asked to consider co-sponsoring this year's event to support it as we have done in the last 2 years. And there was an attachment in your packet, which hopefully people saw. And I do not know that any discussion is required here, but if anybody has discussion items, there's not a presentation.
No, I don't actually see Patty in the audience, which is fine, but I also wanted to note that the recommendation was to support the film for this year and then to support Day of Remembrance recognition moving forward.
So that we don't need to revisit it every year, and we sort of accept it's one of the standard things that the HRC will endorse.
So just a procedural question. I know, or I believe that there's a distinction between sponsor and endorse. So I want to make clear what it is that we're being asked to do. I'm happy to co-sponsor this event. As Minnie's already noted, this is an important event in our civil rights history. We have a school named after Fred Korematsu. Kobo Boulevard was named after the former mayor who was very much, I think, in favor of Japanese internment, so I think this is an issue that resonates in the community. And I just want to, though, be clear about, are we being asked to kind of co-sponsor future events, or are we just
So
co-sponsoring this
for
event?
the co-sponsorship for the film festival, no, excuse me, the film screening that you've done for the past couple of years and are asking to do again this year would mean that the Veterans Memorial Theater, which is a city space, would be used for this with, as a co-sponsorship with the city so that there is no cost to the organizer. Recognition moving forward could be in varying different ways. It could be continuing, to do a film screening co-sponsorship again, moving forward, as you've done. There's minimal cost to that in that it's a city facility that is available for use that night. So,
And just the question was, remind us of the difference between endorsement and co-sponsorship, just
I
in
think
case we
the
want to.
co-sponsorship, there is a fiscal component tied to it in that this would be use of a city facility. Endorsement is that there is no fiscal sponsorship. It is that you're sort of lending your name to the importance of whatever it is happening.
So we're doing the higher level of incorporating ourselves into this event. Okay, any further discussion or questions, Kate?
I would just say the flyer's not actually in the packet, that at least the one I'm looking at online, do I? is
No,
that
it's a staff report that's in the packet, not a flyer, because
Oh,
the
okay.
flyer does not have the city logo or anything on it at this point. That has been put out separately.
Okay, I might have missed it. Okay, sorry about that, I was looking for the flyer. Yeah, no problem.
Open for discussion or for a motion if anyone is so moved?
Well, I'm happy to put a motion, but I'll just say I think I would give a positive vote for this. I went to the event last year. I thought the films were really good. I thought the discussion afterwards was really good. And I think it's definitely an important part of history for us to cover. So I would be giving it a yes vote.
Chair will need public comment too.
Yeah, okay, I see no motion yet, so let me open it up for public comment. If you would like to comment specifically on this agenda item about the city, the HRC, and on behalf of the city co-sponsoring the event we're speaking of, come on forward. All right, closing public comment on that item. Do we have a motion?
All motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, and with that, we move on to item B, which is our Immigrant Safety and Solidarity Forum. And let me just tell you the sort of outline of how we expect this to go. First, we'll have presenters. They have been chosen in advance. They know who they are. After the presenters, we'll hear from the subcommittee that will report a little bit in addition. And then we'll open up for discussion between the presenters and the Human Relations Commission. That's the part that's the forum, the dialogue. After that, once you've had a chance to hear the presenters and the discussion, we'll open it up to public comment from the general public, 2 minutes each, up to 2 minutes each. So that's the schedule you have before you, so you know when it will be your turn. And without, I think, further ado, I will pass it over to Dina to facilitate this item.
Thanks, Lainey. First, I just want to thank everyone who's come here to be here, but also those who came to speak at this forum. I have had the opportunity to meet many of the folks who are going to be speaking today, and I'm pretty impressed and just in awe of all the work that they do in the community. So I want to just thank them up front. I've also learned a lot, and I've enjoyed getting to know many of you. So thank you for giving me that opportunity. I also wanted to thank Carrie for being extremely flexible and accommodating, because a lot of things came together very last minute to make this possible. For the forum, just to provide some framing, a little bit around the purpose. So the purpose of the forum, as well as the report, has been to get an understanding of the work that's currently being done to support immigrant communities in Davis, the greatest challenges that they're facing in Davis today, and then what organizations and community members feel the City of Davis, perhaps in partnership with Yolo County or UC Davis, could do to better support, protect, and stand in solidarity with immigrant residents and immigrant communities here. So as Lainey mentioned, speakers will be first. We're going to try to stick to around 3 minutes per speaker, but we aren't going to be overly strict. We're not going to use a timer. And for those of you that work on behalf of multiple orgs, I think there's a couple of you, you are welcome to talk about both of the organizations or just speak on your own as a community member. And a couple of you have also invited community members today, and maybe not just your org, but community members who are impacted, and we will accommodate some extra time. I will know that two of the folks who kind of fall into those categories are Natalia and Antonio, so please know that you have a little extra time if you have community members with you. And as Lainey mentioned, we will then potentially have some time to go through the report, mostly around the recommendations, and have some discussion before we close out this part of the agenda. Okay, so I will call people up. Daniela, you were actually on the list, but you did come during public comment, so it's up to you if you would like to speak again.
Sure.
Okay, wonderful.
Hello, good evening. This is me again. I will proceed to share with you the introduction to the 2-minute comment that I could not wait to share with you. And this one is a little bit more from personal experience. So my name is Daniela Tellez. I use she, they pronouns. I am a formerly undocumented community member of and a City of Davis resident from 2007 to 2015. But I continue to engage with our community through fiercely compassionate community service towards building human-centered environments where everybody can thrive regardless of immigration status. I am also a mother. I am a caregiver to a mixed status family who has been deeply shaken by the recent attacks on our communities, and come to you to provide honest public comment on some of the priorities for the public ordinance and tangible support for our communities. And I do this from a deep sense of love for the community, for the City of Davis, a community that for many, many years, I will say for the past 20 years, that is the time that it took my family to adjust our status, the city has served as a protective shield around my family and myself, and I'm probably gonna cry, but provided me with tangible health care through the Community Care Clinic, legal assistance through the UC Davis Immigration Clinic, the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation, but not a lot of support with housing. My family was very vulnerable to fluctuations in income. As you can see, one day you have income, one day you don't. So, which made it really challenging to pay for rent. And it is not secret that the City of Davis housing practices can oftentimes be described as predatory. And I'm here to say I was in the receiving end of those policies. I'm standing here today because I believe my voice and experience can make a tangible, positive difference for our communities that are also going through those challenges and difficulties that I believe they should not undergo. I am hopeful that I can use these lessons, from my learned experience to make the City of Davis a more welcoming and accessible place for undocumented and immigrant communities. Perhaps maybe not through the ordinance, but maybe yes, but with housing. The City of Davis offers a lot of good resources, but it's missing this really key component. So I am here to say if there's a possibility to ensure that all City of Davis renters to be mandated or recommended somehow to disclose if they accept ETINs or individual taxpayer identification numbers in lieu of social securities or work authorization documents up front, I think that will put a lot of families at ease during this time. Because it is a vulnerable moment when you have to go to an unknown renter to disclose that your immigration status simply because you want housing for your family. I wish there was a list of the people that actually accepted these ITINs so that our community members did not have to do that on a one-by-one basis when looking for housing. We all need a roof every day of our lives. So help us make it easier for them. Another thing that I would like to share is that when people do not have access to reliable income, we know that the City of Davis also has those leases that are 9 months, 10 months, 12 months, and we know the reasons, right? But if there's a possibility to open the door, to perhaps offer that gentle exit for the monthly, quarterly, bi-monthly, I think it will be greatly appreciated. Yes, that's one of the things that I have to say. I don't know if it's related or not, but I wanted to share it alongside the comments for the ordinance. I don't know if you have any comments, questions, you can contact me anytime. My name is Daniela Tejas. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Or Daniela. Okay. We are going to go to Elizabeth Gray and Areli Duran. Are you, okay, you're here, great. From the Yolo County Library Literary Services, ESL classes, and Bibliobus.
Thanks for having us here. Welcome. My name is Elizabeth Gray. I am a manager at Yolo County Library.
My name is Areli Duran, and I'm the ESL coordinator for Yolo County Library. So one of the greatest challenges that people have expressed to us is that when they come to our ESL classes, they tell us that it's difficult to feel safe when approaching an institution. They are doubtful that the institution will prioritize their best interests. We have attended many outreach events, and the only thing we notice is people handing out information handing out information to many people as possible, or perhaps they are content just having a table at an event. We would like to see more outreach events where people are given individual attention, and time is spent helping each individual overcome barriers and find services that actually assist them in reaching out their goals. Other providers who want to help are overwhelmed and have a very long waiting list. The trust relationship can be strained if we refer a learner to a provider who can only put them on a waiting list. So much of what is offered sounds great, but it doesn't work in real life. Our families are in need of help.
So just to clarify what we are doing, Areli and I, for the public library here in Davis and 7 other branches throughout the county, we are providing ESL classes for rural caregivers, which means we prioritize people who are rural, obviously don't speak English, and have children, although they're open for anyone who needs to learn to speak English. But so these ESL classes provide a safe environment and individual support for adults to meet their goals. They provide ongoing learning with a peer group, which builds community and social capital, reducing isolation and building connections. The shared challenges help each participant find the courage and confidence they need to advocate for themselves and for their family. In addition to this, the Yolo County Library has a Bibliobus, or bookmobile, which reaches both the Davis and the Madison Migrant Centers, bringing library resources such as computer access, lending hotspots, and more. And the staff are always bilingual English-Spanish.
So how the City of Davis can help the immigrant communities. So Karina is one of our ESL students, and she had an idea to how can she help into her community. So her idea was to get posters or yard signs to show support to the immigrant community. Something like immigrants are welcome here. She feels like a visual support from her neighbors will help raise her spirits and give her courage for new days. Even though she might know every single neighbor, but just walking by the streets of Davis and seeing those signs, she said that would be really helpful for her and her family to feel safe.
And then we just wanted to mention possible Know Your Rights classes. Knowledge is power, and the approach here is the key element in providing Know Your Rights classes. The people need to feel safe. Rodrigo, who's our colleague at YOLO Works and the County Farm Worker Liaison, held a Know Your Rights workshop for county workers at Woodland Community College, and it was on Zoom for the public. And this was successful because he's a trusted resource for many vulnerable people in Yolo County, and he also recognized that Zoom was the only way for them to attend safely. But at the same time, as a county employee, he was able to inform many county workers about important concepts that are contained in Know Your Rights workshops. And as the library provides ESL classes, we could also, we think, be effective in providing Know Your Rights workshops because we have the trust and learning groups already established. Our ESL instructor, Vera, is also an immigrant, and she kind of represents how she's been able to thrive in a foreign country due to language acquisition and educational background. And so for our ESL learners, they're facing so many challenges because of the language acquisition issue. So Know Your Rights has to also be incorporated into this way so that the people who are struggling with language can understand those. And across the country, ESL teachers are holding Know Your Rights workshops. And through our information sharing with those colleagues, we can develop effective workshops and avoid common pitfalls. As one ESL instructor I met at a conference recently said, the more we each know our rights, the stronger all our rights become. So we're happy to help in whatever way we can. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Jimena Diaz-Jackson and Natalia Deep Sosa for un cafecito and potentially also for, you have to remind me, YOLO
YOLO, Interfaith and Immigration Network.
Immigration Network. Thank you, Yin. I know it is Yin, I just forgot what it all stood for. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. I am Natalia Deep Sosa, a political refugee from Colombia, professor in Chicanx Studies, a YIN board member, and I'm here representing Un Cafecito. Thank you to the Human Relations Commission, City Council members, and all of you for allowing me to speak, not for, but on behalf of the promotoras or community health leaders we have trained with Jimena for 3 years. State-sanctioned violence against Latinx immigrants is not new. In Chicanx history courses or through our abuelitos and abuelitas stories, we are reminded of violent displacement of land-owning Mexicans after the U.S.-Mexico War in 1848, such as the Porvenir massacre that took place in January 1918 at the hands of Texas Rangers. U.S. soldiers and local vigilance against a ranching community, Porvenir. There were no persecutions, but we continue to fight against injustice by remembering this history. 100 years ago, anti-immigrant and anti-Latinx rhetoric was shaped and helped shape anti-immigrant policy like the 1924 Immigrant Act, praised at the time as showing strength, security, and nation building. Our current militarized and racialized policing practices were established in 1924 when the U.S. Border Patrol was created, and we see the consequences of the militarization today. For the señoras in un cafecito, The state violence they experience every day is an ongoing social condition. It is structural violence. We surveyed señoras in preparation to our remarks, and when asked what were some of the greatest challenges for the immigrant community in Davis, one wrote, el miedo, la incertidumbre, el estrés, la ansiedad y el encierro hasta cierto punto, ya que el hecho de no ser blanca y el no tener el cabello claro, verme diferente, me causa terror de salir a la tienda o a caminar para hacer un poco de ejercicio, ya que es exponerme a algún tipo de situación con personas que hacen algún tipo de discriminación. Fear, anxiety, uncertainty, stress, and confinement. Not being white and not having light hair, that is looking different, terrifies me and prevents me from going to the store or going for a walk to get some exercise. And it means putting myself at risk to potential racist situations with other people. Sorry, at night my eyes get really tired. Another señora shared, temor a salir de casa por miedo a ser arrastrada y separada de mi familia, e incluso miedo a que nos maten durante una redada, debido a la violencia con la que están tratando a nuestra comunidad inmigrante. Fear of leaving the house, for fear of being dragged away and separated from our families, or even fear of being killed during a raid due to the violence with which our immigrant community is being treated. La señora commented, no saber qué pasará con mis hijos si algún día no pueda regresar a casa. Miedo a ir a la tienda, aunque sea para comprar lo básico. Miedo a llevar mis hijos a la escuela. Not knowing what will happen to my children if I can't return home one day. I fear going to the store, even to buy essentials. I fear taking my children to school. The señoras of Un Cafecito use words such as fear, terror, trauma, dread, anxiety. These are a result of structural violence. Structural violence, as author Butler defines it, describes structural structures, economical, political, legal, religious, and cultural, that stop individuals, groups, and societies from reaching their full potential. Structural violence is often embedded in long-standing, quote, ubiquitous, English is not my first language, social structures normalized by stable institutions and regular experience. Because they seem so ordinary in our ways of understanding the world, they appear almost invisible. When faced with structural violence and extreme racism, there is accumulated stress and anxiety associated with the mental, emotional, and physical strain of dealing with the cumulative effects of being an immigrant in the U.S. We have suppressed immunity, increased sickness, tension headaches, trembling, jumpiness, chronic pain, elevated blood pressure, and pounding heartbeat. Several women expressed that the idea of going outside made them experience rapid breathing and an upset stomach, even suffering of insomnia. This stress becomes lethal when the physiological symptoms are untreated, unnoticed, misdiagnosed, or even dismissed. As one señora shared, tener la confianza de salir al trabajo o hacer diligencias diarias no solo para las personas que no tienen sus papeles en regla, sino también para todas las personas que tienen el mismo perfil racial, ya que los agentes se basan en el perfil racial para detener a las personas. Así que la mayoría de las personas sufren de estrés, ansiedad, y esto afecta la salud física y mental. Having the confidence to go to work or run daily errands is a challenge. This is true not only for people who don't have their papers in order, but also for all people who share the same racial profile, since agents use racial profiling to stop and question people. As a result, most people suffer from stress and anxiety, which affects their physical and mental health. Now that we know that structural violence and the consequences for our brown Latina immigrant sisters and other immigrants, what is the minimum that the City of Davis must do? First, without delay, approve the sanctuary ordinance, so there is accountability and consequences if there is any anti-immigrant hate in our community. Second, we need funding for culturally sensitive and bilingual mental health providers. And third, we need funding for lawyers doing immigration work locally, as well as support for all the organizations that are speaking here today. Gracias.
Good evening. I'm Jimena Diaz Jackson. I'm from Chile. I have lived in Davis for 26 years. I'm one of the Davis Unified School District coordinators of Language Justice and Family Partnership. Maria Leiva and I are Spanish interpreters and coordinate the school district interpreters. We also work directly with immigrant families providing information and resources. Natalia and I are the coordinator of Un Cafecito, leadership project of Davis Unified School District in partnership with Davis Phoenix Coalition, funded by the City of Davis. Un Cafecito is a community of Latina moms who live in Davis and have children attending Davis schools. They are from Mexico, Guatemala, and El Salvador. They share their experiences and knowledge to support new Latino families in the City of Davis. As Natalia mentioned, at Un Cafecito, we don't speak for the señoras, but we collect their questions, suggestions, concerns, and we present them. We ask them, and I want to mention we have several of the members attending this meeting. We ask them, how can the city support the immigrant community in Davis? These are some of their answers. To make us feel safe, having more information about what are our rights as immigrants. Encouraging the population to treat people with respect and equality. Giving the immigrant community emotional support, therapists, counselors to support mental health. It would be very helpful if some people wouldn't look at us with contempt, that they treat us kindly and they let us stay in this country. To have more Know Your Rights workshops for the immigrant community, in person or in Zoom, so more people can have access to the information. To respect everybody's rights. Calling out racist people that fill the community with fear. To have bilingual staff and information in other languages at the offices where the community could have access to information about their rights. To have flyers in different languages, for example, to information about their rights. Another question, where do immigrants in Davis or surrounding communities lack access to critical resources? The most vulnerable immigrants that lack access to resources are the ones that don't have much family or friends that know the resources available at the city. Lack of bilingual staff in different areas of basic needs, legal support, health, affordable housing, mental health, and services in our language. The immigrant community has needs for physical and mental health because it is difficult to pay for a health insurance. I think that access to resources at the places of work, at restaurants, in the fields, and at the migrant camp, also in the areas where more Latinos live, for example, where the trailers are. Another question. What can the city do to make you and your family feel safe? To guarantee that the city is a safe space with no collaboration with ICE. In general, Davis is a safe city, but there are a couple of things I would like to mention. To improve the lighting system on the path that connects the parks, because many people walk them and they are too dark, especially the tunnels. I would also like to see more police presence in bicycles in these areas because of the increasing issue with homelessness, alcohol, and drugs. To inform about rights and legal resources, encourage community messages, and to offer psychological support to families, to keep us informed about any changes. Also, if they see ICE, to inform us so we will not go out. The city could have workshops to give more information to better understand our rights, or give information on where they can have access to information when they are in a critical immigration situation. English as a second language classes, because this is critical for getting better jobs. The lack of English limits the opportunities. In conclusion, I would like to note that for myself, many of these issues, except ICE, existed 26 years ago in this community when I arrived. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalia and Jimena. We're going to have Ann Block come up. Ann is from Immigrant Legal Resource Center and also commenting as a community member.
Thank you. Good evening. My nonprofit, the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, mentors, trains, and answers questions from immigration service nonprofits, both attorneys and advocates throughout California and nationally on immigration legal issues, including here in Davis and surrounding communities. We also have policy attorneys and community organizers on staff that work closely with cities, counties, states, and until about a year ago, the federal government on immigration-related issues, legal issues. I myself have been an immigration defense attorney for almost 40 years now. The most significant needs that ILRC and private attorneys see in this community are for, one, consultations and screening for immigration status eligibilities. Those are follow-ups after Know Your Rights workshops. I just had a consult recently with someone that said, I went to a Know Your Rights workshop, which was great, but then I was told to talk to an attorney to find out what I could do. And then in addition, what's really important is removal and ICE detention defense attorneys, legal assistants like Natalia just mentioned. An environmental justice activist in our community recently informed me that farm workers in our area are terrified to go to work and go about their daily lives. I know many immigrants in our city feel the same way. I know Natalia and Minna and Daniela were all talking about that. In fact, Magda Perez, who is also speaking tonight, and I both met with a woman who has lived in our community for decades, just recently. And she recently decided to give up and return with her U.S. citizen husband to Mexico, leaving their 3 young adult children here in order to avoid the risk of ICE detention. We need a way to coordinate and supplement existing immigrant services, a lot of which you've already been hearing about, including both social and immigration legal services in Davis. We need to have coordinated social and legal services right now for those that are afraid, some afraid even to leave their homes, to take their children to school or go to work, and whose needs will only increase if more massive raids start occurring nearby us or within our own city. Rapid response specifically to ICE enforcement in Davis should be coordinated with NorCal Resist, overall ICE enforcement rapid response network, as they can provide same-day assistance to immigrants as volunteers are available. We need to make plans as a community. We need to plan and practice for ICE raids in future, in case what is happening in larger cities come to us here. In fact, many small cities near the Twin Cities in Minnesota are already experiencing a huge ICE presence, even at their elementary schools. We are already a sanctuary city, in a sanctuary county, in a sanctuary state, which of course angers our current administration, and we may eventually be a target. There's already a large office and contingent of ICE officers in Sacramento and Stockton, as well as in the Bay Area. When ICE comes to our community, we need to know about it in advance if possible, and while it's happening, and we need to be already organized. In that regard, I want to also express my deep concern and bewilderment that we are not also tonight reviewing a proposed sanctuary ordinance, which would provide much more perceived and hopefully actual safety for our immigrant community here in Davis. ILRC has been working with cities and counties around California and nationally that are passing these ordinances in the wake of ICE arrest and detention surges around the country, and they're urgently needed right now in this moment. Our city needs to find the courage and do what is necessary to truly act in the best interest of our immigrant community right now. Tomorrow may be too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. We now have Magda Perez from CRLAF and UCD Immigration Clinic. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you. Yes, my name is Magda Perez and I am co-director of the UC Davis Immigration Law Clinic and California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation, both organizations who for more than 40 years have been providing immigration legal assistance and representing refugees, farm workers, immigrants, and mixed status families with their immigration needs. Following the first Trump administration, both our organizations kind of joined together to provide training and resources in the schools, to provide like safe haven policies within the school, which became very successful. We were providing a lot of training to parents through ELAC and other after-school programs. At this moment, families across the country are living with fear and uncertainty as the heavy-handed immigration enforcement plays out in our neighborhoods. Students are afraid to go to school, parents are afraid to leave their homes to go to work, and to attend immigration hearings and apply for services for their children. We know a lot of college-bound students are afraid to apply for financial aid and live out their college dreams because they don't want to provide information about their undocumented parents. Really kind of cutting away at their dreams for a future in the United States. As Anne had mentioned, we have so many families that are deciding to just leave the United States after having lived their entire lives, after having children here in the United States, because just the uncertainty and that fear of being deported to a country that is not even their own, right, creates so much additional uncertainty. I think we have done an excellent job of providing Know Your Rights presentations at schools, at churches, and a lot of that in the communities. However, we learned that as that we empower these communities, then that the government comes up with different tactics. Just recently, there was in the news that the Department of Homeland Security has indicated that they are going to allow ICE officers to go into people's homes, right, just on their administrative warrants instead of the judicial warrants. So I think oftentimes our community says, we are trying to exercise our rights, but they're being violated, and who will be there with us as these rights are being violated. So I think we really need the resources, and as we talk to our community members about what it is that they need, it is more support. When we do our Know Your Rights presentations and we hand out the red cards, we ask the community to stand with these affected community members so that it's not just only those that are carrying the red cards, you're flagging that they're undocumented, right? As a community, we all have to stand next to each other to exercise the rights. And it can be really scary when we tell community members, exercise your rights, and they're like, well, they're being violated, what can we do? Well, document it. And hopefully there are other, ways to overcome these barriers in the future. So while we feel that the immigration forums serve as a preventive measure and provide lists of resources in the event that affected community members get apprehended and detained by ICE and CBP, we're also hearing, that there is an expanded need because the threat, even for those, that are like, we're doing it the right way, where we have applied for benefits, we have waited, 20 years for our appointment, and we go to our hearings and we get detained at USCIS. So the need for accompaniment to these, even to their fingerprinting appointments or when they're doing their ICE check-ins, as we had mentioned, the need for family preparedness documents to just give that sense of security to parents, right, that someone will take care of their children in the event that they are detained. And a coordinator who can provide information about which organizations provide rights services, including robust pro se assistance, removal defense, and habeas. While the Immigration Clinic and Sierra Leone Foundation also provide removal defense, as more applicants are being placed in removal proceedings and denied bond, the need for more removal defense and habeas advocacy has significantly increased in recent months. With the elimination of the automatic work authorization extensions for immigrants who are either in removal proceedings or have applied, for benefits, many of these primary breadwinners are going to lose their jobs, forcing these families further into poverty. So the need for resources, wraparound services, and immigration services is even greater now than it has been in the past. So we strongly, request that resources be made available to support these immigrant families, these mixed status families. And I think, when we're talking about, Davis has traditionally, been a very welcoming community, but families right now feel like there's so much uncertainty and fear out there that to the extent that we can ensure that all of our resources, all of our businesses, the schools, the churches, the courts and everything can be those safe spaces. And I know that the federal government is not honoring that, but I think as a community we can be there to support these immigrant families. So providing the resources that have already been mentioned by the previous speakers is greatly needed, but the need for immigration legal services is magnified just because of the denial of human and civil rights, and then also the more families are being placed in detention. Just recently we were representing a mother in her adjustment of status interview, and ICE came in and detained the mother, and I had to have that very difficult decision with her children to say, your mother has been detained and she's been shipped to another state. And their question to us, did you look at the notice? Did they have the right documentation? So obviously the families are informed about what their rights are, but they know that their rights are being violated, right? So we need to be able to also provide support for these children who are trying to continue their education and oftentimes are left without their primary breadwinners on there. So we appreciate all of the support that you have already provided, but more is needed, especially for these families that are in significant need now. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Magda. Next up we have Daniel Spear from NorCal Resist.
Good evening, HRC. My name is Spear. I use they, them pronouns. I have been a Davis resident for over 7 years. I'm a volunteer with NorCal Resist and the daughter program of that organization called Mutual Aid in Davis. In April of 2025, the Mutual Aid in Davis program started under NorCal Resist with the goal of redistributing non-food items like furniture, living supplies, and clothes within the Davis community. I'm here today as a representative of both organizations as part of this forum to stress the need for Davis to step up to the fascist policies in action. Simply put, as both a Davis resident and volunteer with NorCal Resist, I'm extremely concerned for the outcomes of immigrants in our country and our city. The greatest challenges facing them is honestly their daily livelihood. In other words, living their life could fundamentally ruin it. What I mean by this is that at any moment, a masked federal agent with no identifying information, no restraint on their operations, and no respect for the established law could physically detain them anytime. Immigrants connected to our programs have expressed a significant fear for their ICE check-ins, their immigration hearings, and a possible inhibition to even leave their homes. Not only that, but but the inefficient bureaucracies and operations of local governance delaying the legal residency of immigrants within our communities significantly impacts political efforts of resistance. This is not right. The procurement of life and happiness is a fundamental right of all people, and the inhibition of that directly or indirectly is a shame. We believe that the city has a responsibility to encourage and maintain the inclusive culture of Davis. This dedication should also specifically include a commitment to oppressed peoples of all cultural and geographical contexts, as they are just as deserving as anyone else. In my opinion, as a representative of the organizations as well as a Davis resident, the city should aggressively prioritize the well-being of immigrants within our community in both physical and financial capacities. Efforts should be made to support the housing, food, and political insecurities of these peoples within our town. This can include the partnership and funding of mutual aid programs, the formation of accompaniment-style programs similar to the model that we use at NorCal Resist in Sacramento to assist immigrants with the cultural transition, the availability of Know Your Rights content, the promotion and support of NorCal Resist Rapid Response Network for ICE activity and enforcement, the commitment for no city agency or department to work with ICE, and even the possibility of an inhibition or an antagonism of ICE enforcement within our town, especially if enforcement occurs in surrounding areas as mentioned previously, and the establishment of sanctuary city status. As such, the city could shine as a light amongst the vast bleakness of outcomes given the fascist actions of our federal government. I hope you take this seriously, as 13 plus, if not 14, 15, and or 60,000 people in this town behind me would be in agreement with everything that all of us could say. If Davis is a place that I want to live and that you want to live for much longer, now is a time to do something. No inhibition of bureaucracies, no inhibition of local governance. If they're not going to abide by the law, there is something to be said about our ability to act or function in a capacity that will directly contact and directly inhibit what they could do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Spear. Maria Elena Martinez from Empower YOLO.
Good evening. My name is Maria Elena Martinez. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I work at Empower YOLO as the lead promotora focusing on violence prevention. Empower YOLO is the sole domestic violence service provider and rape crisis center in the county. Critical services we provide include 24-hour crisis line intervention, emergency shelter, counseling, training, legal assistance, and other services for individual and families affected by domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, and child abuse. We also have family research centers in offices in Davis, Nice Landing, and Woodland to support improved health, social, educational, and economic outcomes for Yolo County residents. I am here today to share some ideas regarding violence prevention and housing services with a specific consideration for the needs of immigrant families. In the past year, we have observed growing distrust, fear of reporting, and hesitancy to disclose documentation status among immigrant survivors of abuse. Due to shifting federal administration policies, survivors are increasingly afraid to report abuse or access civil and criminal legal options, including contacting local law enforcement and applying for family protection orders. As a result, survivors and their families face increased risk of continued abuse and victimization. While we appreciate that Yolo County law enforcement does not share information with federal immigration authorities, fear within immigrant communities persists. We recommend increased outreach and education in non-English languages to ensure immigrant survivors understand their rights, available victim services, and the support provided by local law enforcement. Additionally, we recommend the city prioritize hiring bilingual service workers to better meet the language needs of Davis residents whose first language is not English. With regards to housing, Empower Yolo provides housing assistance, including eviction prevention and rapid rehousing funds to help secure permanent housing, as well as landlord engagement and interpreter services when needed. Accessing housing remains challenging for many clients when landlords refuse to accept third-party checks, for example, from Empower Yolo or a stake. Or decline to consider non-traditional forms of income. Undocumented immigrants also face additional barriers in accessing free legal services to address housing and other legal needs as they arise. We recommend the city consider allowing non-traditional forms of income as acceptable proof of income for housing application, incentivizing landlords who work with immigrants, survivors, and increasing funding for legal services, given the critical needs for housing support for these vulnerable communities, community members, many of whom perform essential work. We will also welcome the opportunity to work with you to convene relevant city stakeholders to discuss the development of a new program to support the housing needs of immigrant families. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Maria Elena. We have Antonio de Lara Boost on United Farm Workers.
Hello. Well, my name is Antonio. I know many of you. I work with the United Farm Workers. I also just try to be your friendly neighborhood helpful guy to people who need it. And I second a lot of what folks have already said. I would strongly support an ordinance just about as strong as you are able to make it, and as the city has the political will to pull it off. Count me in. I do want to emphasize actually a slightly different set of issues that have already been raised, I think, a lot. We've had housing raised a lot. And I just really want to stress that in my experience, what I'm seeing, not just in Yolo County, but across certainly the Central Valley and across California, is, most immigrants are working people. They have to pay the rent. They may be scared to go to work. That's definitely happening, but people very much still need to go to work. Just to be very blunt about it, these are not rich people. These are not people who can afford to stay in their apartment for 4 years on end. So, the main stressor that I see in immigrant community members' lives here in Davis and across Yolo County is primarily economic. I think the immigration raids and the possibility of being detained certainly adds an additional stressor. And I really second a lot of the resource capacity limitation issues that have been raised, for example, particularly around lawyers and having access to lawyers. I think that's a huge, huge barrier. That would be fantastic if the city, maybe in collaboration with the county, could provide some funding for removal defense attorneys. That would be fantastic. But on a day-to-day basis, the main stressor that immigrant community members face are economic. Wages are too low, rents are too high, it's too difficult to make ends meet. So with that in mind, I wanted to bring some folks to talk to y'all about their experiences. And I'm happy to translate for them. And I think Ignacia is going to go first.
Mi nombre es Ignacia Hernández. Tengo 19 años viviendo en Davis.
So my name is Ignacia Hernandez, and I've been in Davis for 19 years.
Creo que quiero decir tres cosas importantes para levantar la voz como representando a los latinos.
So 3 important things to say to raise the voice representing Latinos.
Lo que pasa en la vida real, lo que a veces no se da cuenta y porque normalmente nadie habla.
So, you know, the daily life stuff that, you know, people don't realize, no one talks about.
Uno, las rentas son demasiadas caras y cuando vas a ver a las propiedades te dicen que tienes que ganar 2.5 más de lo que tú estás pagando tu renta. Y las rentas normalmente un estándar es de 2.500, de 2 recámaras. ¿Y quién va a ganar eso cuando estás ganando el mínimo?
So the rents are too high. Oftentimes when you go and tour a property, you know, you're being shown an apartment, they ask you to demonstrate that you have twice the rent for income. A 2-bedroom apartment is going for $2,500 in Davis. You know, who has that if they're making minimum wage?
Yeah. Otra es la seguridad, ¿verdad? La otra, la estabilidad emocional sobre la migración. Tengo una experiencia personal. Hace meses hablé con mi hijo. Y fue duro, ¿no? ¿Sabe? Él me dijo que
So she's sharing a personal experience of a conversation she had with her son.
estaba como en depresión por la situación, porque dice, tuve que pensar, analizar, terapiar, cómo un día voy a amanecer sin mis padres.
So she was speaking, her son was expressing a sense of depression about just having to think about and prepare for and analyze, prepare for the eventuality of life without his parents.
Ya. Tal vez nosotros como adultos no miramos o no vemos, no sentimos la realidad cuando unos jóvenes, adolescentes o niños que están pasando esa situación, esas emociones, esos sentimientos, y cómo nosotros como padres, como adultos, como la ciudad, como la comunidad, cómo podemos ayudarlos.
It's just sometimes as adults, we don't always think about, you know, the emotions of the young people, the teenagers who are growing up in this context, and what can we do as adults to support the young people.
Ya, porque en la realidad eso afecta emocionalmente, afecta su vida diaria, afecta para su educación, y creo que es importante, ¿no?, saber qué es lo que sienten, qué es lo que piensan, y estar ahí uno, ¿verdad? Estar como padres, como comunidad. Hay que ver, porque son los niños del futuro.
And just, you know, we need to make sure we know how our young people are feeling and to be there for them as adults, as parents, as a community member, because our children are our future.
El último punto es, yo veo la realidad, ¿verdad? Tengo que tener 2 trabajos para poder cubrir mis gastos, y hay cosas que pasan como latinos que, o cualquier persona puede pasar. Hace tiempo en mi trabajo me corrieron por cáncer, ¿no? Fue despido injusto. Y hay veces que no hablamos, no alzamos la voz y ver dónde podemos obtener ayuda, cómo lo podemos hacer. Hay cosas que nosotros como latinos pasamos, cosas que tenemos que ver y buscar la manera cómo salir adelante de tantas situaciones que uno pasa.
And just she wanted to mention that she is working 2 jobs just to make ends meet, to make things happen. And there's a lot of injustice that happens on the job that is often not spoken about. She was sharing that not too long ago she was fired from work because of her medical conditions. And that was an unjust termination, and these are things that are often not spoken of. And just as Latinos, there's a lot of, and just as anyone, there's a lot of situations that you're just always having to figure out multiple situations at once, and it's really hard to just figure out how to get ahead.
Bueno, eso es todo lo que les quería comentar y creo que es bueno
bueno hablar y bueno ver lo que está pasando.
And she says that's all she wanted to share, and it's good to share this, and it's good to talk about this. Okay. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to translate.
Hello, my name is Noé.
So his name is Noé.
Por lo regular vivo 7 meses en un campo migrante.
So 7 months he lives in one of the migrant camps,
Es de abril a noviembre.
April to November.
Los costos son bajos en la renta ahí,
So the rent at the camps is low
porque la agricultura paga poco.
because agriculture pays very little.
Lo que llegamos a ahorrar en ese tiempo,
So what we save in that time,
cuando nos vamos a la ciudad, lo gastamos todo.
what they save in the time when they're living in the camp, when they have to move to the city, when the camp closes, they spend all their savings.
Porque la realidad es muy caro aquí,
Because truthfully, it is very expensive here,
por los sueldos que tenemos nosotros.
at least from the salaries that we have.
Y pues queríamos ver si esos campos estuvieran permanentemente abiertos todo el año,
And so what we really would like to see is for the migrant camps to be open year-round,
o una solución de buscar alguna ayuda para nosotros,
or some other solution to have some sort of help for us.
para los trabajadores agrícolas, pues que ganamos poco,
So for farm workers who earn very little,
porque pues yo tengo muchos años viviendo aquí y tengo mis hijos aquí y no me quiero mover porque es una ciudad bonita, me gusta.
and you know, I've been living here for many years, I have my children here, I don't want to move, I like it here.
Y pues si nos pueden ayudar en eso, se los agradecería.
So if you can help us out with that, we'd be very grateful.
Gracias.
Muy buenas noches, mi nombre es Víctor Luis Méndez, soy originario de Guatemala. Y un saludo para la mesa de presidio, que gracias que están al lado de los inmigrantes. Yo en el 2024, el 19 de noviembre, llegué aquí a Davis, California.
Thank you so much, to all of you, and thank you for being on the side of immigrants. He's sharing that he is from Guatemala, and then he arrived here in November of 2024 to Davis.
El motivo que me vine yo, emigré para Estados Unidos porque allá en Guatemala hubo una guerra en mi comunidad, en mi pueblito.
And he came to the United States because in his community in Guatemala there was a conflict in his village.
Y la guerra fue por motivo de los cárteles que existen en Guatemala. Entonces, ahí vimos muertos, vio mi esposa y mi hija que emigramos para acá. Y el motivo que emigramos fue porque tuvimos amenaza de ellos.
And the reason for the conflict was related to the cartels and some of the different criminal groups. Him and his wife and his child witnessed dead bodies and were receiving threats, and that is the reason they came to the United States.
Entonces entramos por la frontera, por Arizona, y ahí nos entregamos a migración, y lamentablemente que no puedo trabajar, me dijeron que no puedo trabajar mientras que no me llega el permiso de trabajo, pero viendo la situación que se está oyendo y que se oye en las noticias, pues da un poco de pena.
He's sharing that he crossed the border through Arizona, turned himself into Border Patrol, and was told that as he goes through this process, he does not have a work permit, and so he is not currently able to work, which is something that brings in, he expressed a feeling of some shame about, given everything that is being said on the news, is the fact that he can't work.
Entonces, por el motivo, tenemos miedo y temor regresar a nuestro origen, por lo mismo que si volvemos a llegar, entonces sí, creo que nos matan porque mi casa me lo quitaron ellos, los cárteles de Guatemala, me quitaron mi casa, entonces pues da ganas es una tristeza, pero lo tenemos que soportar y por lo que se oye, pues da pena que ICE nos agarra y nos deporta para nuestro origen.
And so, you know, there's a real fear if he returns home to Guatemala that he and his family would be killed. Their home was taken by threats from the cartel groups. And so there is definitely a lot of anxiety about the possibility of ICE grabbing them and sending them back, because that would be very dangerous.
Entonces, por ese motivo, el otro día fui a una cita de migración y ahora sí que voy a ser un poquito de breve. Voy a contar una parte nomás. Fui a esa cita y me agarraron muy agresivo, me encerraron por sencilla razón que no fui a una cita, porque tengo una aplicación pero no lo entendió bien la aplicación. Entonces me encerraron y me agarraron muy feo, me azotaron muy feo.
And so he wanted to share that recently when he went to his ICE check-in as part of his process, he was detained by ICE in a very aggressive manner. And the reason for that was he had missed one of his earlier check-ins because he was not aware of that check-in, because he was not at the time able to understand how to use the app that informed him of his check-in dates. And so when he went to a subsequent check-in, he was grabbed and detained by ICE in a very aggressive manner.
Entonces mi situación y lo que estoy pasando y lo que estoy viviendo para mí está muy duro, difícil no está, porque de renta pagamos 3,070, que lo está pagando mi hijo y el otro y un menor. Son dos hijos que tengo trabajando y yo sí no puedo trabajar porque si me logra caer que estoy trabajando, pienso que me va a ir mal.
And so it's a very difficult situation he's living in. His place he lives with, his family, is over $3,000 a month, which is very difficult, in large part because he cannot work. And he knows that if he does work and immigration authorities were to find out that he was working, given his ongoing legal case, that would go very poorly for him. So it is his oldest son and another son who are able to work, who are paying that rent. But that is a very difficult situation.
Entonces no podemos aplicar para apartamentos de bajos ingresos porque no tenemos nuestro documento, pero ahí tengo una mi hija que es mamá soltera, que tiene dos niños, dos de familia, y pensamos buscar a alguien que nos dé un ánimo para que mete la solicitud de los apartamentos de bajos ingresos, a ver si calificamos por los papeles de los niños, a ver si se puede, si hay alguien que nos puede ayudar. Si no, pues vamos a seguir triunfando hasta ver a dónde aguantamos.
And so the difficulties around the housing are compounded by the fact that due to the family's immigration status, they're generally not able to apply for low-income housing or affordable housing programs. One of his daughters is a single mother to two US-born children, and so they are interested in assessing whether or not that would make certain housing programs available to them, and he expressed desire for help doing so, and certainly looking for help doing so, and hopefully that will work out in some way. But if not, he expressed that they're going to need to keep figuring it out and see, they'll be here for as long as they can take it.
Bueno, yo pienso que ya con esto me despido porque si no voy a pasar hablando toda la tarde aquí. Entonces ya pienso que con esta me despido y les doy gracias, mis sinceros agradecimientos por estar al lado de la gente latino y la gente inmigrante. Gracias.
So he said with that he'll say goodbye, or he'll be here talking for a very long time, but thank you again for listening and for being on the side of the immigrant and the Latino people. And I don't think I have anything to add to all of that, but just, again, to really stress the intense economic stress in addition to the immigration stress. And you can't be a sanctuary city if no one can afford to live here. So hopefully there are some recommendations that come out of this for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio, and everyone who came up to speak. Donna, I see that you want to say something.
So thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I apologize for being late to this really, really important meeting. I appreciate very much the issue that you are taking up. It sounds like you are at the end of public comment, though. Am I correct in thinking that?
So this is an item which is a forum, and so
Okay.
it's not public comment, it's planned presenters that have been scheduled in advance.
Okay.
After all the presenters are done, then it'll open to 2-minute public comment.
Okay, so then I'm still on time to make the point I was hoping to make for you all. I just wanted to be sure that anyone who's here tonight, because we all have a lot of individuals here coming forward to speak in a way that's very vulnerable, very personal, there is never any obligation to provide your name for the record. And I just wanted to make that point for individuals so they feel safer making comments.
Thank you for that, Donna. Actually, I wanted to see Maria Leyva. Would you like to speak now? I know the timing was, okay. And Maria is from DJUSD and NAETISL. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, good night. I really appreciate to have opportunity to start talking and to express my dream. So my name is Maria Leyva. I'm the coordinator of Lengua Justice and Family Partnership for Davis Unified School District. I'm working for 13 years in the district and the community, as both as community and district interpreter and translator. I'm living in Davis for 25 years. I have my 2 kids and my 2 grandkids. I'm very connected and I'm very familiar with my community. I really have passion to help them because I live some of the nightmares that they live. So I understand, and it's my passion to help them. I have degree. I finished my university in the University of Nicolaita, Mexico. I have degree in medical school, internal medicine. And this background in my education helped me to focus more directly and have reinforcement and access in lengua justice. When saying that, I have, during pandemic, very strong situations with the migrant community. And I hear the need of my community. And during the pandemic, that made me go and look for some resources. And I found it. I found Natesos. Natesos is an organization that is all USA. And they have trying to convert and reinforce interpretation for all the families. So that's why I'm going to express that I'm going to many communities and schools, and I see many other reinforcement that they are doing. And I want to share, I forgot to bring it, but I sent it in the email, a paper when there are like connection between the city and the district. And they have very concise information for the families. And especially now, District of LA, they have updated 2 virtual meetings every month, con update information, legal information, about information and food, mental situations, resources. And they do it twice a month. So it's amazing. So I have all the resources they allow me to share, and I really want to do something similar. I want to have a collaboration between the city and the district and give it a reinforcement to all the family, because I think everybody has the same right. And I want to say some example that I see in one family. I was interpreting, and the family, he feel ashamed, and he didn't ask, and he didn't understand what is going on. And then in the end, he started asking questions. And I expressed all his interpretation is doing that. Say, I feel embarrassed because maybe they were like targeting me because I don't know how to express myself. It broke my heart. I say, no, you have the same rights. You are learning. And you have the same rights to have the same resources. So I want to be sure that for now, everybody has the information. So I really appreciate them. We have, it's my dream, a coalition and partnership with the district and have like LA, updating meetings virtually, because right now our community is afraid. They don't want to be in person. But if you would find out something virtual to give it information updated, it would be amazing. So thank you for hearing me, and I hope my dreams come true. Thank you.
Thank you,
Roderick Conrad from International Rescue Committee.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Roderick Conrad, the director for the International Rescue Committee in Sacramento. We serve Sacramento and the surrounding areas, so also Davis. We provide a ton of different services, psychosocial support for survivors of torture, health navigation services, anti-trafficking, youth leadership, employment, ESL, everything really. We do a lot of stuff. I think the thing that I want to express today is mostly that everyone that's spoken already has said all the things I would say in terms of the needs. Housing is always a huge need for all populations. We serve mostly refugees and special immigrant visa holders, primarily from Afghanistan. And it's the same for them as it is for folks from other populations. And something that's happening specifically with refugees right now that you may or may not be aware of is the fact that the Trump administration is reviewing every application for every person who's already been approved as a refugee and arrived in the United States under the Biden administration. That's hundreds of thousands of people who thought they had found safety here in this country, and that's now under threat. We've heard reports that people, primarily from the Somali population in Minneapolis, have been grabbed by ICE, taken on planes to Texas, and interviewed based on the situation I was just talking about. They've been re-interviewed, and some of them have been found strangely admissible again, and were just let out into the street in Texas, away from their family and their friends. And that's not okay, you know? So I think the thing that I want to echo from the other speakers is just the fact that we really need to work on legal representation for people in some form. Pro se, things that can be scaled quickly. Removal defense, friends of the court processes, things like that. It's really important that happens. And there are thousands of refugees that live in this community, and thousands of them could be called at any time for these re-interviews that they should not, by any stretch of the imagination, have to endure or go through. So anything that this community can do, or other communities in this area can do to support that, and support them through that process, even helping them just file for FOIA so they have their own information so that they can represent themselves in the best way that they can, will help. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Roderick. Marcus Tang from California Immigration Project and the founder of the Fuel Network in Sacramento.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Tang. I'm the executive director of California Immigration Project. We're a nonprofit organization serving, based in Sacramento and serving this region. We provide free immigration legal services to low-income individuals and families. I'm also a proud resident of Davis, having attended UC Davis for both undergrad and law school, and then later working at the Undocumented Student Resource Center as an attorney there, serving the immigration legal needs of the university students, staff, faculty, and the broader community. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and wanted to share more about the initiatives that the City of Sacramento has pioneered to support immigrant communities in our region. California Immigration Project serves as the host organization for the Sacramento Fuel Network for Immigrants. FUEL stands for Family Unity, Education, and Legal. The FUEL program was established by the City of Sacramento in 2017 in response to the federal government's aggressive increase in immigration enforcement during the first Trump administration. Our services include representation of people in immigration court proceedings, fighting their deportation, know your rights presentations for community members, especially at a time of heightened fear and uncertainty, and family emergency preparedness assistance, which is helping parents create emergency plans for what happens to their children in the event that they are detained or deported. We also provide trainings to other service providers in the region so they can host their own Know Your Rights trainings for Sacramento residents as a way to build capacity for these critical services. So initially, these services were exclusively for residents of the City of Sacramento because the city funded the program. Over the years, we've been able to expand eligibility to residents of other municipalities when these additional cities or counties are able to offer funding to support the program as well. And today, fuel is still going very strong. We've significantly expanded the original scope of services that we initially offered in 2017. In addition to the work I just described, we've also worked with school districts such as Sac Unified, Twin Rivers Unified, Elk Grove Unified, to train educators around supporting undocumented students and helping these school districts develop their sanctuary policies. We also coordinate the legal component of our region's rapid response network in collaboration with NorCal Resist, who operates a hotline for people who are experiencing or witnessing ICE enforcement. So how this works is when we're notified by NorCal Resist of these arrests, we try to send an immigration attorney, whether that's a staff attorney or a volunteer, to the ICE Processing Center in Sacramento or Stockton to provide emergency legal services in that moment of crisis. And then finally, another service we offer or we provide is coordinating the Attorney of the Day program at the Sacramento Immigration Court, which offers same-day representation to unrepresented respondents before the court in their master calendar hearings. These services are offered by a coalition of partners that make up the FUEL network, not just my organization, but partners such as other organizations in the room tonight, including the Undocumented Student Resource Center, California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation, NorCal Resist, the International Rescue Committee, and the UC Davis Immigration Law Clinic. Our approach in this region has always been to do this work collaboratively because we're so much stronger acting in community and in partnership. So those are the services. And I also wanted to share my thoughts on another question on our mind tonight, this collective question we have about what are the specific needs facing immigrants in this moment that we as a community should try to help meet. I think about this question all the time. As an immigration legal services attorney, I think about what more we can be doing to prepare for a situation where the current administration targets Northern California and we experience the same mass immigration enforcement campaigns and ensuing chaos that other regions across the country have suffered through, such as Los Angeles, from Los Angeles to Chicago, and now Minnesota. As the ED of one of the larger immigration legal services boards in the region, I have to share that unfortunately I don't think our region is prepared. We lack the legal services infrastructure and multi-city and multi-county coordination that I think we need. Our rapid response infrastructure, essentially currently consists of our staff attorneys and volunteer attorneys who can go to the processing center when an arrest happens, if they can go. And there just are not enough attorneys who can do this if we start seeing hundreds or thousands of arrests. Quite frankly, it will require our entire region stepping up in a major way to ensure that our legal and humanitarian response has the resources it needs to protect our communities. So that's how I think about this question as an ED, as an executive director of my work. But I also wanted to share how I think about this question as a resident of Davis and as a parent. By now, everyone has heard about the horrific arrest and detention of a 5-year-old child in Minnesota, a preschooler, right? And when I was dropping off my 5-year-old at school today in South Davis, I couldn't help but think about the impossible decision that parents across the country are making on a daily basis. And that is, do I send my child to school and risk that they don't come home? No parent anywhere should have to confront this question, should have to ask this question, or even contemplate the possibility that they may be forcibly separated from their children. Excuse me. As a parent and proud and concerned member of this vibrant community, that's how I think about this question, about the need of immigrant families right now. Are families getting the support that they need to feel safe in sending their kids to schools? Are our schools training educators about how to support immigrant students? Do they know what to do if ICE shows up on campus? Are there Know Your Rights presentations in Davis, community spaces, so that we're better prepared for encounters with immigration enforcement if and when they happen? Do U.S. citizens know do U.S. citizens know what they can do to be allies for immigrant and refugee communities in Davis? Do families in Davis know who they can reach out to receive immigration legal services or other assistance? As you've heard, housing is an incredible need as well in this community, especially if they cannot afford to pay for a private attorney. These are the questions that I think will help us answer the broader question of whether we as a community are ready and prepared to protect immigrants and refugees in Davis and in this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Next is Anush Jujorian and Gloria Partida from Davis Phoenix Coalition. Welcome. I just want to start by thanking everybody for putting this forum together. I want to thank everybody that has shown up to bear witness to this very important topic. And I want to thank especially the people who have come here under fear, who are here and they're afraid, and they have come forward bravely to tell their stories so that people understand what is happening right now. And you know, every day we look at what's happening in the news and we read the stories or we see the videos, and it always feels so far away. And so I'm really glad that people came here to speak today so that you understand that it's not far away. It's your next door neighbor. It's the people whose kids you're going to school with, who are also experiencing the fear and the uncertainty that, you know, we're reading about in the papers. So I'm the executive director of the Phoenix Coalition, and the very first Know Your Rights workshop that we held was 13 years ago. So this is not new, and we have continued to do this work, and we are also the folks who have Un Cafecito as part of one of our programs, and we're especially proud of the women who have gone out into the community to make sure that they are bringing those folks who are in the margins into the mainstream of our community and who are taking the resources that are needed out to the folks who need them. And I'm not going to add very much because a lot of folks here have said so many powerful things, but I want to let everybody know that we are here, we've been here for a while, and we continue to try to do as much as we can to help the most vulnerable in our community.
Hi, my name is Anush Jujorian. I am chair of the Davis Phoenix Coalition. I want to start out my comments this evening by mentioning a program that Un Cafecito grew out of, which was Apoy Yolo, which Jimena and Natalia, who already presented this evening, the three of us collaborated on this project, which endeavored to keep our immigrant families housed, fed, and safe during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we were helping with rental assistance. We were getting food to people when they got sick and they were unable to go out shopping. We worked with Antonio, who is here this evening, in order to ensure that our immigrant population, especially our farm workers who are considered essential workers and who are not able to stay at home, that when vaccinations became available, that they were prioritized for vaccination. And so based on that work, we developed Un Cafecito. And based on that work as well, and based on the experience of last year, you know, we just celebrated a year of this administration. And there was a lot that was different for this administration versus the last time we had this administration. And we were taken off guard. But now we know the score. We know what they're doing. And we are prepared with, we started the Culture of Community Project last year. We are restructuring it right now in order to meet the needs that are happening right now. And so based on a lot of what folks have said this evening. These are things that we already know from having worked with our immigrant families for several years now. And so what Martin was talking about in terms of the fuel program, a lot of that coordination and networking between organizations in order to meet the needs for our immigrant families, that is what Davis Phoenix Coalition is prepared to do. Because we are a coalition, these are relationships we already have, and these are conversations that we have already had with folks. So, things that we can address as security and a sense of community safety. We're going to have a direct action group that is going to shore up the Migra Watch program. We're also going to have folks based again on Apoyello. We're going to train folks to be direct points of contact to neighborhoods where we know a lot of our immigrant families live. Because something that made a huge difference for the Apoyello project was that when any immigrant family had an issue, they had one person to call. And so we were meeting the community where they live, literally. And then that person would get back to the three of us, and we would know how to pull together the different organizations in order to get all of the services that that family needed. So it wasn't piecemeal, and the family having to go first over here and get this one met, and then go someplace else and get that one met. We pulled them together so that the family could get all their needs met at one time. Another aspect that we're hoping to do is fundraising, because obviously we are hearing a great need for funding. And if there's any way the City of Davis can help with that, that would be fantastic. But the needs that we know we have are things like rental assistance, because of the folks who can't work, or because we had one family where the father was taken by ICE, and the father was the wage earner. And then that family with minor children in our school district, they were in danger of becoming unhoused. We definitely don't want that to happen. We know from Minnesota, in fact, I have friends in Minneapolis who are doing this work right now, and they are running ragged because they're getting groceries for families that are afraid to come out of their houses. This kind of pulling together of people power in order to meet these needs and to create solidarity, this is something we are already working with the culture of community. And part of the culture of community is changing the culture. We were founded after an anti-gay hate crime. We are extremely sensitive to the issues of bias and discrimination that fuel the hatred that is causing this pursuit and targeting of immigrants. We have been laying the groundwork here in this community to make people aware of that this isn't a question of legality. It's a question of who matters. It's a question of who belongs. It's a question of whose lives matter. And we are insistent every single time, everyone's lives matter. Everyone who lives here belongs here. This is the groundwork we've laid. We are poised and ready to go. We just need support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anish and Gloria. I'm not sure if Alejandra Cuevas is here. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for being here.
I feel like my collaboration, hi everyone, Alejandra Cuevas, will be redundant and certainly much more modest, but I will share my experience. So I frequently do volunteer work for different local organizations. Most recently, I volunteered for the Davis Media Access and had the opportunity to conduct outreach to the immigrant community and participate in a focus group with representatives from 13 agencies that work directly with immigrant and underrepresented communities. Many of them are here. I would like to share in broad terms some key information I found. The full report can be found on the DMA website. For the immigrant community, there are considerable barriers to essential resources. Immigrants often face limited access to legal support and counsel. A common question asked was where to get accurate immigration and work visa information without fear of being questioned and remain safe regardless of legal status, and how to afford those services. They face limited access to housing support and affordable rents. For example, 41% of Latino farm workers pay over half of their wages towards housing. Their median annual income, according to the Yolo County Farmers Workers Assessment of 2024, is $20,000 a year. They would like to have more information about healthcare services and programs, including mental health care, activities for youth and elder health programs, parenting and diagnosis support, etc. There's limited access to education opportunities, job training, grants and scholarships, workforce programs, summer programs, and online literacy to do banking, paying bills, or other basic tasks. Such programs are either not available or information about their existence doesn't fully reach these communities. In addition, language barriers make it difficult to find accurate, accessible information. These gaps leave people socially and economically vulnerable. When discussing with the agency's representatives, they mention a plethora of services they can provide to the community, as we are listening right now, including many that address some of the expressed needs. Their challenge is how to reach out to those communities to provide information about those services, or to request their input in the development of new services or budget allocation for needed services. As the representative of the Health and Human Services said, and I quote, "We need to let the immigrant community know that they can influence county funding. If they are informed of our surveys, to establish new programs and participate in those surveys, we can create programs that respond to their needs. But if we don't hear from them, their communities will continue to be underrepresented and underserved." Based on the gathered information, I believe the city may help by increasing civic participation, promote participation in public meetings and policy decisions, help immigrant communities know they can influence county funding to address some of their needs, strengthen culturally competent outreach efforts, not only by strengthening liaisons with these agencies that works firsthand with underserved, vulnerable communities, but also by disseminating information about available services to the immigrant community, teaching them how to access those services, making sure they are safe while navigating the complexities of the immigration system, to mention a few, and increasing liaisons with the aforementioned and other existing organizations to amplify the help and services they already provide. Supporting these organizations' efforts will result in the well-being and integration of underrepresented communities. To summarize, the city can build trust, share life-saving information, and increase civic participation, including those who are more vulnerable, helping our community become stronger, safer, and more connected. Thank you.
All right, HRC members, I need to pause quickly to note that we do need to take a vote to extend the time we expect to be here tonight because our scheduled meeting time is coming to an end. So I think we had better consider an hour and nothing less than that, given what's left on the agenda and the fact that we'll want to have some discussions. Anybody want to argue with me about that? Anybody want to make a motion toward that end?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of extending our meeting time for 1 hour or less, if it takes less, say aye.
Aye.
All right, let us continue with the forum. Thank you so much. This is fantastic.
We have only one more, and I'm actually going to read it. It's kind of goes well with what Alejandra just spoke about, because it's also from the DMA. It's from Autumn Renaud, who is the executive director, and she couldn't be here and asked that I read this. I'm submitting these comments on behalf of Davis Media Access, a nonprofit community media center based in Davis that works throughout Yolo County. We are one of about 1,800 such media centers scattered across the country. In 2025, DMA was first of its kind nationwide to conduct an intensive analysis of our local news and information systems and community needs. We named this project YOLO Local. Using surveys, interviews, roundtable discussions, and direct community engagement throughout the county, DMA worked with consultants and a locally established working group to map the news and information needs and gaps in Yolo County. We published an in-depth report in October 2025 that can be found at davismedia.org. This process yielded several key findings, chief among them the need for expanded Spanish language and bilingual media. While over 36% of Yolo County residents identify as Hispanic or Latino and nearly 20% speak Spanish at home, no news sources are specifically dedicated to serving this population in our county. This is not merely an oversight. It's marginalization of almost 40% of our county's population. As we engage with immigrant communities and Spanish speakers around the county, here's what we heard. I need information about schedules for transportation and road closures. I need information about where to find jobs and food distribution. I need to help understanding what my children's school is asking of me. It's hard to navigate. I'd like to know about events and emergencies in my community, and I need this in a language I can understand. To further center the relevance of this in Davis, currently the only Spanish language news sources in Yolo County are a one-page per week in the Winters Express and a partially Spanish language monthly online newsletter published by Rise Inc. that largely serves the Esparto area. YOLO Local has made the case that a community media center with its technological framework and deep community connections is fertile ground for helping to identify and address the information needs and gaps in our community. Now, our task is to persuade funders to see us in that light. Moving forward, YOLO Local's primary objective this year is to launch a Spanish language news product. It will require continued connections with others serving the immigrant community and their advocacy towards that end. And I think that concludes the portion of our speakers. I think we were planning to do some discussion. I know many people had to leave, so asking questions might not be possible if people aren't here, but we can do that. If we also want, we can walk through the recommendations that we put in the report as a way to sort of think through if we have got enough in there. I would say probably not, based on what we've heard today.
I will defer to you if you want to share your recommendations, or it seems like it might be prudent to ask any questions of presenters pretty quickly. We can discuss amongst ourselves after people leave if we need to, and we might want to bump up public comment to make sure everybody gets a chance to say something. So how about we have HRC questions for any presenters that you see that are still left, or for any of the presenters who feels like you could answer the question that is asked. Maybe you could just invite yourself up to the microphone if you think you have an answer to the question that we are asking. So it's a little bit of a strange format that we're doing here, but if there are any, I have a million questions. I don't know if they're, I'll have to think through which ones I could ask right now and which ones we have connections that we can follow up later as well, right? So let me open it up to HRC members and see if there are any burning questions that we would really like to get an answer to right now.
If I could get us started, since I'm a lawyer, I kind of keyed in a little bit on the need for legal services that I think was repeated here pretty frequently. I don't know, I think I see Ann Block still in the room. I think she's one of the people who mentioned that. And I know Marcus did and others did as well. But I guess one of the things I'm just trying to get my arms around, because I hear the request, and I'm just wondering, is there information that's been collected anywhere, anecdotally or otherwise, about like what services are currently available and where that networking and other sort of work that Marcus was referring to and others as well, we could help to stimulate or support? In other words, I guess I'm asking, do we know kind of what the universe of legal services available for immigrants, specifically around immigration issues, I think.
Well, that's a good question. I think you're seeing that, I mean, all these different organizations have websites with their services on them, but I don't think anybody has necessarily put something together for Davis or Yolo County in terms of which of these organizations serve our constituents, our immigrant community here. So that might be something that we can do, to put that together. And a lot of these, like Marcus said, there's some priorities in funding. Sometimes, like the City of Sacramento funds fuel networks. And I know that they do provide services to people in Davis because I've referred people in Davis to them. But the priority is always where your funding comes from. So, and like IRC, I think too, that is also the case with them. And we do have some Yolo County people that have been up here as well. But that might be a good idea to put together some sort of list of what services are provided for people here in Davis and people here in Yolo County.
Yeah, I just want to drill down about like how we might try to address that need.
I know everybody's over capacity and there's not enough services. Does that answer your question? Without really answering it?
That's a good start. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anne said it at the end, but I just wanted to also emphasize that like making a list of all the different places to get help is not necessarily helpful if all of those places are so booked already that they can't actually help people. And one of the issues that I've found is just you tell people like, hey, look, here's the list of all the legal offices that will do good, credible immigration representation for pro bono or low cost. And people come back to me a day later and say, I called every single number and no one can take me, right? So like there is a legal representation bottleneck issue that's happening across the board.
And I think so I want to highlight two things. First is that we need to make a list and make sure that they are good. And so the idea is I should say me, myself, and I. Whenever I get someone, I have to text Anne, is this a good person? Is this a good lawyer? Somebody going to this person. Because we know now that there's a lot of scams going around. And so like, how do we know that this person is not scamming somebody in our community, asking for money, and then they just take the money and do nothing? Because there's a lot of notario scams. So that's one thing. The other thing that also as an educator is, how do we fund the next generation of lawyers? So we also have to think about that pipeline, because we need the new generations. Like, we have a lot of volunteers or people who are already retired, but we need to start building the next generation. So I think it's also about thinking in, like, ahead as well. And so how can we do that? We have a fantastic school here, but how do we build that capacity, right? And there's another kind of lawyer, DOJ. What is that, Anne? The DOJs? The people who work.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, those.
Okay.
So there are other kinds of people who can do it too. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know that. But those people, like, how do we build them up too and create that network so they are able to?
Thinking about legal document assistance, I think, is what you're referring to.
There's Department of Justice accredited reps that are, actually, ILRC does a lot of training of them too. And they have to work for an agency that's been accredited by our federal government, the Department of Justice. And they have to take so many hours of courses, and they have to have resources available to them, including attorneys available to them to assist them. But if they're partially accredited, they can actually represent people at USCIS on their cases. And if they're fully accredited, they can actually go to immigration court and file a case with the IRS. So that's in a nutshell.
Thank you.
So Catholic Charities generally often has accredited reps, for example.
All right. Other HRC questions for presenters?
I have some questions for Marcus, but I think he may.
Yeah, you can't leave.
Yeah, to leave. Yeah, it's late. And maybe you might know for the Fuel Network, because I know that you're aware of their work. Do you know, I'm interested, we've heard so much about housing, and I have been struggling thinking through the recommendations on what one could ask for help from the housing perspective. I'm curious if the Fuel Network, are they connecting people with housing? I mean, I heard about what we've been doing through the Davis Phoenix Coalition's work, which seems very much like on a case-by-case basis, trying to help individual families. But I'm thinking, and which I think is amazing work, and if we could scale that, that would be awesome. But I'm also curious if there are organizations that are purely focused on that, or anything that you heard through the Fuel Network regarding housing in particular, since we're hearing that all the time.
Are you asking me?
Anybody, actually, anybody who wants to comment on that.
I get emails, we have a whole listserv on Fuel Network, so I get their emails all the time, but I have to say I don't pay as much attention to the housing and other services, because there's so much going on in the legal immigration space. But I do think that they do, I mean, they have a lot of different organizations throughout Sacramento, and I do think there are people working on housing in the Fuel Network as well. There's even people at Sac State and university people involved, but there's a whole panoply of social service organizations for different services that are involved in the Fuel Network, and we all are in a listserv, and they connect people or connect when things come up with other people. And they also have regular meetings. I think it's once a month at least, and they have a city council member that's Eric Guerra that has been involved with it since the beginning too. He's very supportive of them.
It might be worth looking into some of those. Thank you.
And what I heard also that's spinning for me is if we were able to put together a list of housing specifically in Davis that either has flexible terms, thinking of like migrant workers who might need some months but not a full year, and somebody else mentioned that, and that also might not require, might require various kinds of identifying information and various payment streams. So that sounds like it would be very Davis specific, and if anybody knows that something like that is already in the works, that would be good to know. Otherwise, that seems like something that,
I agree. I thought like lists in general could be helpful, and then like vetting of those lists, I think is also going to be an important part of that. Go ahead, Anush.
So I just want to reiterate a point that Antonio made, which is, and this is not up to the city, this is at the county level, but, we do have housing for farm workers, and currently the farm workers are not allowed to live there year-round, and many of them would like to live there year-round. And so I don't know if there's a way that the city can work with the county in order to make that happen. That is one option. I know a lot of that housing needs to be weatherized, correct? Yes, maybe it is.
There's a state component too.
Okay, and there's a state component, okay. Anyway, in terms of places that have flexible terms and things like that, I mean, we already know where our immigrant families are living. And so we know what housing is currently accessible to them. A lot of times that housing is not that great, and a lot of times they are being also exploited in various ways by the management. If there is a way that we could ensure that those places stay accessible financially to our immigrant families, but also have some kind of oversight so that these places do not exploit the immigrant families or refuse to fulfill their obligations as landlords because they're like, oh, these folks are afraid to report anything, and so we can do whatever. That's part of my suggestion.
Hi again, everyone. In regards to housing discontinuation point, I just want to reference that our organization, Norcal Resistance Sacramento, has, as I mentioned, our accompaniment program, and that in addition to providing mutual aid for like furnishings and livings and accompaniment to government proceedings and ICE check-ins and such, there is a part of it that is financially funded by donations to our organization that does rent out housing and provide it to asylum seekers, specifically in like more immigrant communities in Sacramento. So that could be another type model where there's, through some coalition or through some organization, there's a possibility of renting with very flexible type functions or positions like was referenced, like what was referenced previously. So instead of having it linked through a city and the connection to the legality of that, it could be through an organization that's fulfilling all the legal requirements that allows the flexibility as well.
Spear, can I ask a follow-up question? So is NorCal Resist actually doing this program, or are they partnering with someone else who's doing that program?
To my knowledge, I do believe we do it. I am an uninvolved, but I would gladly find the person who is involved.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just texted Marcus and he said La Familia in Sacramento, which is one of the fuel partners, might have housing assistance. They're not technically fuel funded, he said, but they're one of the many partner organizations.
Say their name again, please, La Familia.
I think there's more to it than just La Familia that I don't know off the top of my head. I think that.
Just to name drop two more organizations, so obviously Stake does this work. They do one-time payments, right? And that's not immigration specific, but there's a lot of overlap categories here. Yin is, in my view, the kind of has been the gold standard resource where, it was mentioned already when families lose breadwinners, like Yin has come in and cut checks for people to pay their rent. And they're very nice and flexible about that. I think the Vincent de Paul Society plays in this space. I myself have not tapped that resource as of yet, but they're in the back pocket of mine if needed. And then I think I'm not at the right commission for this, but it occurs to me that I should probably mention there's this golf course behind my window that I hear is in the city limits. So, maybe something can happen there.
Before we finish, I want to acknowledge that we have two incredible interpreters that have been interpreting for the members of the community that doesn't speak English. So, Marisela and Maria, thank you. I also want to acknowledge and thank to Dima for making possible that today we have interpretation. That is opening the door. We need to open the door, have everybody come and sit at the table, and thank you for listening to their voices.
All right.
Are we in discussion or?
I wanted to sort of follow on Jimena's statement about interpretation, and one of the things that we have as a resource, because the school district has developed an entire interpreting program and leadership around how to set up events that are linguistically accessible and provide for linguistic interaction. It's not the only organization that's doing so, but it is a resource, I think, for the city and for other organizations who are looking to develop language justice approaches and activities. So I think one of the things we could recommend would be about raising the standards for language access in our community organizations as a way of providing a greater welcome and a greater integration for immigrants in our community.
All right, I think I would like to open to public comment. There's some people still hanging on out there. I appreciate you, I see you, and if anybody now from the public just wants to come forward and comment on anything to do with what you've heard tonight, anything you think we should hear that we haven't heard yet, we would love to have your public comment at this time.
Good evening. My name is Hendrix Dyke. I am a Davis resident. I'm also serving at the International House of Davis, and I'm on the board for the United Nations Association. I wanted to get up and speak because after hearing what everyone has spoken of today, number one, thank you for holding this and for making space for this type of conversation to be taking place. I think it's really important for this community. I just want to make a note that we are currently working on a welcome kit at the International House Davis, specifically geared towards people coming to this community who are not familiar with the customs here. You give me a lot to think about. I want to thank everyone who came up and spoke. It's really powerful the work that's being done on the local level from so many nonprofits. And sorry, I'm a little emotional here. It's been a powerful night. But I want to also speak on if there's anyone who has spoken today that can assist with our welcome kit, with providing information on what the immigrant population of this community needs, we would greatly appreciate that. So just putting it out there, we're not too far from here, and always open to receiving that input. So thank you again.
Yeah, I'm Steve Murray. I'm the Indivisible YOLO's co-chair, and as an independent, progressive, activist organization, Indivisible YOLO stands in solidarity with all these wonderful groups that do everything they can to help the immigrant community. And we are an activist organization that creates large-scale events and mass mobilizations as our role. And there is an opportunity here to continue to engender public support by creating better and more wholesome mass mobilization events such as the No Kings YOLO event, which we did in partnership with Davis Phoenix Coalition in October, but we ran against some obstacles and everything else at that point. And it would be an interesting idea to have the city, through its Human Relations Commission, be a more active participant in this thing rather than somebody we have to ask permission of. Somebody would be an active support witness. And so, in our view, we need to raise our collective voices across the city, across the community, along with the things that are happening in Minneapolis and other places. And this is an opportunity to do so, so that, just as we'll be standing tomorrow with a small group in Davis, in Woodland, and elsewhere, in a few days, we're going to start planning our next large-scale mass mobilizations, and these are human rights events. And just like the human rights historical thing you did the other day beautifully for Martin Luther King Day, this is an active, involved, direct action in human rights right now. We're making history, not just reliving it. And I would encourage the city to help protect us as we create a bigger movement and push back against this ridiculous Trump administration and the regime of authoritarian. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vera Sandrowski with Indivisible YOLO, also a member of the Davis community. I'll keep it really brief. It was so moving to hear the voices of the organizations and the people affected by what's happening. We're living through multiple crises and horrors as we all are witnessing. And I would just urge the city to adopt the ordinance to make us a sanctuary city. This should be well within the city's purview to do and to move on as an urgent matter. It doesn't require money, it doesn't require new buildings, it doesn't require environmental review. It's a simple act, in my opinion, that the city needs to take and stand up in that way as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Dylan Horton, resident of North Davis and a member of the Davis Social Services Commission. I just want to first of all thank y'all for creating this space for this important community conversation. As I was listening, I think, and as I counted the presenters, I feel like everybody, or almost everybody, mentioned the diminishing availability and affordability of housing as a problem that, of course, all of us as residents of this community experience, but is a particular strain on our immigrant population. Our affordable housing sort of population in Davis, or sort of plot of affordable housing in Davis, and our city's affordable housing services are sort of within the remit of social services. And so I'm hoping that this, our commission and this commission, along with city staff and the city overall, can work to kind of step up as has been suggested in a number of ways. our affordable housing and our housing overall in Davis, like acceptability and sort of openness to our immigrant population and sort of their participation in making that population more secure. I'm sort of reminded of, in the wake of another sort of global and sort of national tragedy, the murder of George Floyd, also in the Twin Cities area. The Social Services Commission, the Human Relations Commission, and the Police Accountability Commission, which I was on at the time, came together to form a number of recommendations, the time for the 9 recommendations to improve public safety services in the city of Davis, to make those more responsive to folks with mental health crises and folks in our unhoused population. I think those commissions, or perhaps some of those commissions, and the city can come together again to kind of shore up our housing and making sure that I think it's more accessible to our full population. So I look forward to working with the commission in that. Thank you.
The needs are so big, but we are a community. I just ordered a couple hundred whistles to give out at the farmer's market.
Dylan, I think, is on the right track, actually, and I just wanted to share one more thing. In June and July, LA was really in the thick of it. You had Border Patrol there, you kind of had like a period of sustained raids, and I do think this is the pattern we've seen, and so far, I think thankfully, Davis and even the broader Sacramento area and even San Francisco have mostly escaped being the bullseye city. Maybe our turn will come before the Trump administration is out. One idea that came out of the LA City Council that the LA City Council was unable to adopt because the political support for it did not exist, but I would just mention it here for the record and as an idea, if we ever are in the kind of actual thick of it where there's sustained daily raids, there was a suggestion that much under the, as Dylan was referring to during the pandemic, there was an eviction moratorium. And that is one thing you could do, theoretically, as a city or as a county, if a state of emergency is reached that really makes daily life kind of realistically impossible. I mentioned in my earlier comments, right, people, sure, they're afraid, but they still have to go to work. And right now, frankly, the day-to-day risk seems fairly low and people have to pay the rent. But if there ever is a situation where I can, people are looking at Border Patrol outside their window, then that might be the time to break glass on something like an eviction moratorium. And that is an authority that was exercised, does exist at the local level. So that is just one thing to consider. Perhaps in the ordinance, there could be some language around what the trigger for that might be. Because you don't want to do something like that willy-nilly either. I understand that, but I think that is something that potentially the political support does exist here that did not exist in LA.
Hello, I'm a UC Davis student. This is actually the first forum I'm attending, so thank you all for hosting this. This is really informative. We were both discussing how, I know we were talking about lists and Know Your Right workshops, and we were kind of talking about how maybe it might be good for people that don't even know where to ask or look. Something like posting flyers or information in public locations, like places of work or highly frequented areas, just so people who don't even know where to look or don't even know to ask for these Know Your Rights have that just accessibility or ability to know to ask, I guess.
Right, and I recently moved here, so I don't quite know how many postings there are around, but where I moved from and I worked in a lot of Know Your Rights workshops, they were very adamant about getting posters out and everywhere in almost every job where immigrants are potentially working. It's like having signs and being able to tell the difference between the I'm blanking on the word, but the forms that they come to your house with and say that they're either ICE or not, and there's two, just blasting those. And it really doesn't cost so much money to put that information essentially everywhere. And I haven't personally seen it since I've moved here, walking the streets or anything. And I know that this is a safe city, but it's like we should kind of show it on the streets. But I do also want to thank you guys for sitting here and listening to all of this. It's my first meeting here, and it's very clear that you all care, and thank you for that.
Hello, my name is Kristen Kowecki. I've been here a long time. I'm an educator, I'm an activist in many spaces, including NorCal Resist. And I'm really excited to see that there's like action that's happening. I do want to bring up like a criticism that I've heard of Davis, is that it's a town of performance, right? There's like these, we love our neighbors signs, but what does that actually mean, right? So I would like to be proud of Davis in this sense, and I think that this is a really cool moment for us to actually, walk the talk that we've been having on our lawns for a long time. So I'm really excited to see all of the suggestions. I really hope that we pursue these. Specifically, the affordable housing seems like a really critical point, the eviction moratorium. I do want to add a small thing that I thought of that I haven't noticed people bringing up, is some sort of like grants or a guide to grants, because it's cool to like buy whistles, but it would be cool for more folks to be able to do such things, like to be able to fund informal activities that maybe you don't want to have listed. And in fact, my other suggestion here is, as far as having a list of addresses, that needs to be very careful. Like that, we don't want to necessarily have a list that's just out in the open for like, hey, Dear ICE, come find us here, right? So figuring out the informal places for people to get resources, including like welcome kits or something, right? So kind of this dual end with that. So yeah, thank you all so much though, and I'm really proud to see us all working in this end. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I want to say thank you again, and I want to say the last thing. I think I'm the last one. So I want to share something that I really feel like it's a need, and trying to make it not afraid, because that, like the lawyer said, what happened when the little kid, a preschool, was taken. It's not a criminal, it's a kid, come on. So was taken and treated like a criminal. It really breaks my heart. I was crying because I don't know what happened to us. And it's breaking my heart because it's my community. So I shake myself and say, I need to do something, because we don't know what happened to us. So we need to act quickly, because it's uncertainly what will happen. So this is a package that the Department of LA, the district, is doing. And I like it because it's very graphic to our communities. And he made like childcare and immigration options and papers that you need to prepare, what happened, when documents that you need. The list of things that happen if you are taken. Who will be the person that will take on your kid? And then they have the one-on-one update for legal things. And they do 2 virtual updates. So they're compiling all the resources that they pass it. So they are amazing work, and they are working one-on-one with the city. So my asking is if we can work together and we can make something like that. It will be like amazing, and it will be giving us safety to our community. So thank you. And I pass this to, maybe you can, I put it in my slide.
Alan Miller. I believe that the city council should always honor the promises that have been made by previous city councils. They never do. I also believe that the United States should honor the actions taken by previous administrations. And clearly, Biden, right or wrong, doesn't matter, let a lot of people come in and come in very dangerous ways across the Rio Grande, trying to navigate the All-American Canal. Complete insanity. But those people are here, they got here by the millions. Trump said that he would export people who were violent criminals. Clearly, he has gone far beyond that, and it is absolutely criminal. He should be honoring the fact that the United States, right or wrong, let those people in, and those lives should not be disrupted unless they're criminals. So the thing is, repeatedly, we have had Republicans, Democrats had the chance when they had the whole government to do something about immigration. And I think next time it happens, this is where the key is. We need to let a hell of a lot more people in legally so that they aren't coming in over a river or a canal. Thank you.
All right, I see an end to public comment. Thank you, everybody who stuck it out and leave your comments. Excellent. And I think we need to discuss amongst ourselves a little bit, HRC, what it is that we do next. The thing I'm cooking up in my brain is that we need a whole agenda item at our next meeting to really flush out the recommendations. I know you put a draft in here, I'm looking at it. It encompasses some of what we've heard. You said it was a draft. Do you feel that we need to do something more with the recommendations in this moment? Or if we, on long range, propose to make this again a majority of our meeting in February to...
I think yes, I think we will need to, I think a lot of what we heard tonight will influence what's in the recommendations further. These were just a draft. I think some of them are quite in line with what we're hearing. But I think we've learned a lot more about the various groups that could come together to potentially make this happen in partnership with the city. I also think that the recommendations, just from other work that we're doing, feels like they might need to be more clear about what we expect the city to do. They're kind of broad, and so I think that's going to be another thing that we would need to do as a subcommittee, is to work on these to make them more actionable by the city, take into account what we've learned today and who could potentially play a role in it. One thing I want to note, though, is that one of our number one recommendations was the Sanctuary City Ordinance. And I could see that taking a lot of our time next month if that was when we get to see it. I know that there's not a known date, but I think it's worth having a quick discussion about what's going on with the Sanctuary City Ordinance and whether that could be reviewed at the same time, because it is one of the number one asks that we heard. And then I did want to know, I think some of the stuff around housing in particular the feel like we had enough to go with a recommendation around that. So I'd like to actually beef that up in the recommendations as well.
I'm a little torn between, and I'm happy to hear from anybody who wants to contribute, but I'm a little bit torn between now that the whole commission has gotten to expand so much knowledge and understanding. This was excellent. I feel like so appreciative of all the work you did to make this happen and every single person who showed up here tonight to make it happen. And I think all of us now are like teaming with thoughts and ideas and wanting to go research things more. So I really think a whole commission discussion, again, is in order. And I don't want to disrespect like the subcommittee that's put so much time and energy into this already, but to what degree it would be useful for you to have the whole commission involved in conversation at our next meeting.
Oh, yeah, I think that would be very much needed. My hope, though, is that as like some framing to that conversation, we would have a new set of recommendations that could be part of it. It doesn't have to be the only part, but that could be helpful. Because ideally, I mean, one of the things we are hearing is we can't drag our feet. We need to move faster. Which is another reason why I'm concerned about the Sanctuary City Ordinance being delayed in terms of us reviewing that. But I 100% agree that we should use the time to have an overall discussion, and one part of that discussion would be a new version of the recommendations based on what we learned here.
And some of the things in the recommendations we might be able to initiate action on, because if they're in the list of things that we already proposed to the city council that we wanted to work on, which I think there might be some overlap, then there might be some things that could be action items for us going forward as a commission, even before they have to be recommended at the city level. Just saying, we need to review the things we said we were going to work on, which is, a bulleted list of things, and anything that falls, like educating businesses about their rights to protect immigrants, for example, is one of the things we said we might want to do. So if that's coming up, that immigrants need to feel that businesses can be safe spaces, then that's something that our commission might already have, the approval to be able to go forward and start doing. So that's all. There might be some.
Is that really the case, though? Like, I don't know, do we have that as a commission? Can we say next time we're voting on doing, more messaging in the community and in workspaces? That sounds amazing, but I feel like we haven't been able to really operate that way. We generally need to put things in front of the city council and get their approval. I would love it if that's...
Pre-put things in front, I don't know, I hear you, I believe you, I agree with you, but we did intentionally pre-put things in front of the city council with the hope that we could then not have to keep every time sort of letting them know what we wanted to do. So I think Carrie's gonna have to be our clarifier on what we can and can't do, and we may save that till the next meeting too, when we even know what we want to do, but...
Yeah, I love what you're saying. I just want to understand in the meantime, what should we do to make sure that's possible?
Yeah,
And can we be sure that the things that we think we can do are actually things that we don't need further approval for?
Are we looking for this? I'm so sorry, I'm trying to log into my laptop because I wanted to review something and it's not letting me log in at the moment. I'm so sorry.
I'm also looking for the specific list of things we said we were going to work on.
I think I changed my password and my computer's not cooperating. I'm so sorry.
I can just speak to that briefly because I have it up on my computer, but what we requested from the city council and the staff memo that was on the council's agenda on September 16th was requesting approval for a proposed work plan that states the commission proposes to focus its work on reaffirming and enhancing the city's sanctuary city status. The commission recommends forming subcommittees dedicated to different aspects of this focus, including, and then there was a list of things that we might.
Yeah, updating the previously created informational card available to the public, creating a one-time publication or guide, including Know Your Rights information, providing education, engagement, and resources for businesses on supporting community members and patrons, offering education and training for city staff regarding immigration rights and protections, conducting sanctuary city public education, including a potential forum and website updates. Those are the things we said we wanted to do.
Right, but we also, just to be clear, that was a list that began with the word including. It wasn't exhaustive.
But at least we know these things specifically, so there are things we can take action on maybe, but yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, if we could do that, I mean, I've already heard about organizations that from the content perspective, from the where you can get this, so from the volunteers that they have ready, like there is a network that we are already doing great things, in some in isolation, some very much working together. That's one of the things we did see in the survey, was that many of these organizations have been working together very well for a long time without a lot of help. If the city, really what we heard in the survey was, can the city amplify and help and support and make it more known and use the city resources, whether that's spaces for people to meet or printing costs. I mean, there were things like that. So yeah, I think that's great. If we can do that, I think that the faster we go, the better.
I'm also like spitting on, we have Cesar Chavez coming up, and like, are there ways that would be an opportunity to, that's not nice.
That's a great idea.
Okay, so I think we close out this item for now, unless you had more that you wanted to do in terms of.
I'm happy to close out the item. I do feel like with one of the number one recommendations being this ordinance, I would love to know if we have any sense of when this ordinance will be able to be reviewed.
Yeah, I mean, we will do an update about that on our subcommittee, but yes, there is a plan for moving forward, and we will be initiating it in our subcommittee item, which is coming right up.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. We decided we would do town highway first.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to close out this item and move on to item 6C, which is the Tong Hai Quinn Awards. And I am going to open up for public comment on Tong Hai Quinn Awards.
I'm so sorry. We have to take a quick pause because our recording only goes for 3 hours. So we need to stop it and restart it. So if we could just pause while we take care of that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll make this public comment on the Sanctuary City Bill. There were 9 letters received from the public and the booklet in the back in support of the Sanctuary City from students. So, FYI.
Thank you, Ellen. I forgot to say that. Yes.
Restart. Stop to restart it. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
All right, item 6C, the annual Tong Hai Quinn Awards. Do we have any public comment? All right, seeing none. The idea is that the commission will finalize the information and timeline for the 2026 Tong Hai Quinn Awards, and I will pass this over to that subcommittee to let us know what we can do for you.
Actually, Lainey, I think this was an item coming from me as staff in terms of timeline and stuff. Just one moment. I just want to get it right in front of me. So yes, there is a subcommittee of Dina, Amir, and Kevin. Sorry, I'm just making sure we still have a quorum. Yes, we do. And they will be discussing, I think, at our February meeting, sort of the process by which the nominations are reviewed and selected. But before you tonight, you've got the proposed timeline, nomination form, and categories. After last year's Win Award, we didn't really have any suggestions from anybody to change our categories or our nomination form. So it is left as it has been in the past. The timeline has been updated just for this year slightly. We always look to open our nomination period up in February and hold it through mid-March, having done the nominations due, a few days for the committee to review the nominations, and then in the March meeting, what has typically been done is that the subcommittee has brought back recommendations for the full commission to vote on. I do think that maybe the commission had some desire to talk a little bit about that process at our, at our February meeting. But before you have sort of the generalized timeline, then that will get us to April for City Council to ratify your recommendations, and then to May, which is when we actually do the awards ceremony and reception. So there isn't really anything new for this part of the Tong Hai Quinn process for this year. As I said, the categories have remained the same based on your discussions from last year and as well as the nomination form. So I think what we're looking for tonight is either changes to the timeline or the nomination form, or you guys just to approve it as proposed. And then we'll go forward with getting the nominations open.
And Carrie, if I may, I think this is clear, but this is, what you're describing is the same process and the same standards, not only that we did last year, but that we've done for the last few years, I think.
Oh, yes, correct, yes. A few years ago, and forgive me, the years kind of blend together, you changed the categories up a little bit, but that, yeah, so, but yes.
Okay. Well, I would just say as a member of the committee that I think it all makes sense, and I don't see any reason to depart from our established practice on this, and thank you, Carrie, for putting this all together, and of course, all the work that you do to make the whole process work.
No problem.
So I would just suggest that we need to approve this process, and that's what we do tonight.
Yeah, I'm also on the committee, so I would say the same. I assume that these meetings in March can just be done over, like they can be virtual if need to be, people are traveling.
Absolutely, great, no problem with that. I'll typically send the committee a PDF of all of the nominations and stuff.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
So I don't have any problem with the timeline. I'm happy to approve it. I just want to say again that the concern we've had in the past has been around what information the entire commission gets and what information the entire commission does not get. And I don't have strong opinions about it either way. What has happened since I've been on is basically the entire commission only sees the approved nominations and doesn't see all of the not approved nominations. Neither do we necessarily know how many nominations there were in each category. Again, I trust the subcommittee. I don't have a problem with that, but we have had a little pushback from the public about that and about how it used to be decided on sort of in a public discussion with the entire commission, and now it's a subcommittee. So some things seem a little, I don't know, I don't want to say secretive, but anyway, I just want to encourage the subcommittee to feel free to think through that as much or as little as you want to, but I am reporting that that has been a concern in the past, so just.
I appreciate that. I'm curious if we have to make a decision tonight about that, or can we discuss it? We as a subcommittee have not had the chance to really meet.
That's fine. I think the thought was for tonight that you would just approve sort of opening up the nominations, and we could get that started, and then the subcommittee could meet over the next couple of weeks and then be prepared to bring back your thoughts at the February meeting.
Perfect. Great, thank you.
Can I have one comment?
Yeah.
At the risk of feeling like I've been completely out of it for this entire meeting. The March 26th meeting is scheduled for the week of spring break for both UC Davis and DCUSD.
Yeah, it's on our long-term planning calendar to talk about whether we need to change that or not.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we've already had public comment on this
You
item.
can't have public comment before you give the staff report.
I can and I did.
That's against the commission handbook. You
Okay,
have
I would
to
entertain a
report-
motion from
Alan,
an
is this part of your
HRC
public
member.
comment? Would you like to have public comment right now?
Yes, please, thank you.
Okay, we will get the timer started.
Thank you so much. I'm just concerned about the Trang report. Last year, Amir is on the subcommittee, as I understand it. And he is part of the synagogue that basically acted in an unethical fashion. They basically decided to use Lashon Hora, which is basically defame people who won this award as anti-Semitic. So I'm quite concerned about his behavior, especially as kind of the unofficial representative of the Jewish institutional community here. So the subcommittee may not have consensus as a result, because he seems to be out of step with the Jewish community as well as with, I think, the ethos of our community of kind of collaboration. So I just raised that, and I urge you to move forward, and maybe it's a little controversy, maybe throw it out with the entire commission. If you can't, the subcommittee can't reach consensus. Thank you very much.
I would entertain an HRC member motion to approve the timeline.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, nice. Thank you. we move on to committee updates. And I think I will do them in order because there does not seem to be a reason not to at this point, and I think most of them will be very brief. So we will start with committee update, Campus Council on Community and Diversity. And Amir is gone, and Ellie is not here, but
I'm happy to provide some information.
Thank you, that'd be great.
I was chairing the meeting. Just two items that may be relevant to the community. The one item that we spent a lot of time had to do with the web content access guidelines that all state and local agencies had to make sure that they are compliant by this April. So we had a workshop on that. And the other piece of information that I want to make sure to share with folks is that on March, it disappeared? On March 10th, there will be a public forum hosting Javier Zamora, who is the author of Escrito. This is, my office is working, I believe, with DJUSD is sponsoring this event, and it is an event that is being hosted over at the Veterans Memorial Theater from 2:30 to 3:30, and it is the City of Davis Arts and Cultural Affairs program that is hosting that space for us. So it's open to the public, and just to make sure that there's an opportunity, given tonight's discussion, it would be a wonderful way to bring the community together.
And there are a couple of flyers about that event that Rachel gave me today, who is my colleague also working on this, at the back of the room, if anybody is interested in grabbing one.
On my calendar. All right, thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the Cesar Chavez Celebration Planning Committee or Commemoration Committee. Looks like that'll be you, Kevin?
No further report at this time. We will need to gear up shortly.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry, Kevin, I just want to make sure, Hilda and I chatted real quick before the meeting started that maybe the three of us can at least get together to finalize a date, because we do need to get with the farmer's market, probably is top priority. So sooner rather than later, maybe just even an email chain, then I can reach out to them.
We are at your call.
Maybe it could be, let me know when you have time.
Grab me anytime.
Okay.
Is this a time when we could add somebody to that subcommittee if we wanted to, given that 2 is a pretty light committee for
I'm going to say
an
yes.
entire event?
I think it is a planning committee, and I would say we welcome all planners, so yes.
Does anybody want to self-nominate to be added to that committee, to make that a powerful event in light of what we just heard today, and thinking about maybe supporting and adding some?
Madam Chair, would you be willing to
I thought
accept?
Felix might want to, but if not, I would be happy to, I mean, oh yeah, you can also. Do you have any interest?
You can go ahead.
Okay, I would like to, help me out here, somebody else do this for me.
Are you asking us to, put this on the?
I would like somebody else to nominate me to join this subcommittee.
I would like to nominate Lainey for that position, third position for the subcommittee. Will someone second me, please?
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, great, so loop me in on the communications for that, and I would, now that MLK is done, I would love to be of assistance. All right, that was awkward. Moving on to committee update 3, Human Relations Commission webpage review. And interesting, we heard some reference to the city website tonight, so that was interesting.
Yeah. It definitely got me thinking. Actually, a lot of things got me thinking about the webpage. We have not had time, Ellie and I, to get together and talk a lot about it, but One of the things we talked about last time was me potentially getting a chance with Ellie to meet with the people from the city who are working on the new website. And I'm curious if we can still do that.
Yes, I think we've got, as I said, I'm not involved in those committees at all, and my understanding is I think we've got a couple of different citywide committees working on website, maybe both redesign, but then also what Michael alluded to with all of the mandatory changes that need to come in terms of ADA compliances, et cetera. So we've got sort of a twofold project going on right now, is my belief. But I do think that Jenny Tan is working on both of those, so I think that she's probably going to be the best sort of.
Okay, that'd be great. I probably need to meet, multiple meetings need to happen with Jenny anyway, because some of the things we're saying and the recommendations are separate from this topic, but there's some thought that maybe Hate Free Together can help with some of the things regarding immigrant safety and solidarity. So I'm just saying to have a couple meetings with her.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. Subcommittee 4, the subcommittee designation to research effectiveness of Human Relations Commission on Civil Rights.
No further update at this time.
Okay, excellent. All right, and the last one, because the other two were items already, is the Sanctuary City Subcommittee focused on institutional allies. And our subcommittee researched lots of things that institutions were already doing, and came down to the idea that we thought an ordinance was the most, a city sanctuary ordinance was the most immediate, effective thing the city could do to demonstrate a further level of support and protection for immigrants. So we proposed that be put on today's agenda as something that we could vote on. We have a draft that is completed based on some other cities' ordinances. And we were hoping that would be on today's agenda as something that we could vote on. So Carrie took it to the powers that be to get it added to the agenda. And and we have been told that it doesn't currently fall under the purview of the things the city council already understood us to be working on and already approved for us to work on. So the idea of what we could do at this moment, and I'll let Kevin add on if he wants to in a minute, what we could do at this moment is basically vote to add the creation of a sanctuary city ordinance draft to the list of things that we would like to have permission to work on, and Carrie will try to get it in front of the city as soon as possible so that they could then approve that, ostensibly, hopefully, to be part of our approved work plan. There, I think, are also complications. I think it's not just a logistics issue. I think that is one of the issues we're going to have. I think there are also issues in terms of the actual content of the ordinance, and if it is something that, I don't know if there are legal concerns or exactly what the concerns are, but I do think there are substantive concerns as well. And so I don't know that just asking the city council if it's something that we can be working on will get it in front of them. But that is the next step that we're aware of that we can do right now. So Kevin, do you want to add something to that?
Well, there's a lot to talk about here, but maybe we should just take this suggestion that you've raised about our authority and what we may or may not do in terms of communicating with the city council. You know, I'm happy to clarify our authority. I would have thought that it was already pretty clear. The Commission proposes to focus its work on reaffirming and enhancing the city's sanctuary city status, and then including a bunch of other things. But reaffirming and enhancing the city's sanctuary status, to my mind, ought to be broad enough to include a suggestion, and of course it's only a suggestion, to the city that it adopt an ordinance. If that's not specifically clear, then I'm more than happy to try to get that clarity. But I guess I'd like our request to be framed in terms of what we understand our existing authority to be. If in fact reaffirming and enhancing the city's sanctuary city status does not include proposing to the council that it consider adopting an ordinance, then council, would you please clarify that for us? And I would make that as a motion.
So, wait, so I'm a little confused. Was there a decision made that this is not something we can do based on, because you're bringing up the language and I agree with you, that an ordinance seems very well within the kind of framing that sentence has. And it doesn't have to be the things including, those are like examples. So I agree with you, but where are we now?
I have the same questions that you do, Emma, frankly, and it's a little bit of a black box, I think. So I don't think we know, and I'm maybe just content to leave it at that for the time being. It's not clear who the decision maker is and whether, and what the process is for making that decision. But it seems like there is some uncertainty among some folks within the powers that be. And in light of that, it seems like it might be worthwhile for us to say, can you clarify whether this language means that we may or may not propose an ordinance? And if the council wants to tell us that we don't have that authority, then that's obviously their prerogative.
Okay, so then do we make a, sorry, well, two thoughts. One is to take public comment, please, before you make any motions, but also wanted to just jump in a little bit here. I think in looking at the bullet points that went to council, in talking with our city clerk's office and our assistant city manager, the bullet that says reaffirming and updating the city's sanctuary city language wasn't interpreted, and fairly, interpretations can be very different, to be creating something brand new. And so there is this wanting to be clarification that if the commission wants to propose a draft ordinance, that we just get clear direction from council to do that. And then secondly, that there be enough time for the proper staff, city clerk's office, et cetera, review the proposed draft ordinance so that we can work a little bit with the subcommittee to bring it back then to the full commission so that it is something that everybody feels good with going forward to council. So I think that's what it is. Completely understand the differing interpretations of things, but that is the direction that I was given.
The thing I like about this next move, if we make it, and if it can get in front of the city council quickly, is like they can just sort of tell us if they have a taste for it or not, right? Before we finish drafting the whole thing, before we all vote on it, let's just decide right now that we want a statement to go to the city council saying we would like this language to include this. Does it, or can it not include creating a draft ordinance? And then we'll find out if they say yes or no, and then we'll know where they stand on an ordinance, I think. And that's important information for us to have.
Yeah, and I guess I would also just say, it would also make clear that the council is the decision maker and not some unnamed staff person.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
We can't engage with.
All right, so Kevin, do you want to make your motion again?
I would, can I just ask, first of all, I think Carrie is suggesting that we hold off on a motion until we have public comment.
Oh,
I think that's
right,
perfectly
sorry, thank you.
appropriate, but before we do that, can I just clarify, for the purposes of the motion, what your expectation is, Carrie, in terms of timing for when you would be able to?
If you were to make the motion to just essentially add on to your work plan, that I think maybe the framing would be that the subcommittee was working on this, and through the research that you have done, you've decided that maybe a next step that you would recommend would be a draft ordinance, and you want to expand upon your work plan, and you're asking city council for approval to do so. And then my hope, if that is the case, if that's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm just sort of thinking this through out loud. I'm hopeful that I would be able to get it on a consent item for February 3rd. I would have to check, which is the next council meeting. I have to check in with clerk's office to make sure that that is a go. If not, it will be February 17th. Both of which are before your guys' next meeting. Then simultaneously, if it was to be able to go on February 3rd, we get the direction to move forward, can continue working with research and review and stuff with the people that need to do that within the city, manager's office, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be my hope.
So does that mean we would be able to look at the ordinance next meeting?
Well, I think that begs the second question that Lainey was referring to, which was what kind of staff review is going to be required before we are allowed to take it up to the commission. Now, as I read the handbook, it provides for staff review. This is on page 72, if you want to take a look. It provides for staff review of subcommittee proposals before they're heard by the full committee, but it doesn't seem to provide for staff disapproval of those things. And I would assume that given what we've very clearly heard about the urgency of the issue, that the staff review would be forthcoming, but we don't know exactly what the timing is.
Could we put that in our proposal to the city council? That we say, can you approve that we have this ordinance and that staff review is not blocking, but ongoing, so that we can discuss it? Because every single month we have to wait before we can discuss it.
I defer to Carrie.
All right, let's pause for public comment for a minute and then come back to kind of wording exactly what it is that we want to say here. So, public comment?
I would urge you to move ahead and have them tell you no on the sanctuary city law. I would just move ahead. My experience with the city is basically, it's been very disappointing. We tried to get the tree ordinance redone. The Tree Commission issued a revision in 2016. Nothing happened. 2018, nothing happened. 2021, nothing happened. A tree fell and killed a woman in Slidell Park. Nothing happened. The city staff is not responsive. You need to push. You need to be assertive. And this is a bill this is very public. How can the city not approve redoing this thing? Move ahead, please.
Hi, I'm back in Block. Thank you for discussing this, and it's very disappointing and surprising that city staff seem to be requiring a lot of review before. I mean, certainly they should be helping and reviewing and looking at things, but why can't we see it? Why can't we see any draft ordinance right now? Why is it not public? That just doesn't make sense. Seems like staff is blocking this from what I'm hearing. So as I mentioned earlier this evening, I'm surprised that we don't have this ordinance proposal to see and review. As an update and strengthening of the sanctuary resolution we've had since the mid-'80s. I was actually here in law school when our first sanctuary resolution was passed. I'm dating myself. But I was very proud to be part of this community then. I remember some of you that have been here a long time might remember Will and Jane Lauder. They were social justice icons at the time, I thought, and were instrumental in passing our initial sanctuary resolution. It was during the war in El Salvador, and massacres of indigenous people in Guatemala were happening, both of which were carried out by their governments with the complicity and support of our own, unfortunately. And those immigrants who fled the violence, like many immigrants here today, including the man from Guatemala that spoke earlier, nevertheless were denied asylum by our own government, which was later found to be discriminatory. Over 95% of them were denied asylum, and then later on, due to court settlement, many of them were able to legalize. But here in Davis, we tried to provide some modicum of protection, or at least solidarity through a resolution. But passing an ordinance has more teeth, right? It provides additional authority for city employees to tell ICE, no, you can't use city property for staging. We're not going to cooperate and give you information about immigrants in the city. And it makes it illegal to do so unless otherwise clearly required by law. And at ILRC where I work, we actually have been helping a lot of cities and counties pass such ordinances. So, you know, there's some experience with this in California and elsewhere. We recently helped San Mateo, Contra Costa County, and even Providence, Rhode Island with their sanctuary ordinances. Berkeley just passed an ordinance last fall. They had a resolution for decades, but they made it into an ordinance. I'm hoping I can go a little bit longer on this.
I will assume you are in the business of wrapping it up.
I will wrap it up. Yeah, so Los Angeles has a new resolution passed in November 2024. Oakland has one. Are we at risk for ICE raids? Yes. And people, you know, Marcus was tearing up about the 5-year-old, the preschooler, 4 or 5-year-old in Minnesota. That was in Columbia Heights. That was a town of only 22,000. Only 22,000 has a huge ICE presence there. Picked up 4 kids the other day on their way to school or on their way home. Including this little boy. So finally, we're already on the federal government's so-called sanctuary jurisdiction list. And that's unlikely to change by our city passing an ordinance as an update and strengthening of our current resolution. We need the courage as a community to act together, to act now, without further delay. I hope the ordinance can soon be made public by the HRC and quickly passed into law by our city council. It's the very least we can do for our immigrant community. Thanks.
Thanks, Ann. All right, seeing no further public comment, let's go back to what it is that we are going to motion here at the moment.
So as far as I understand, we need the city to tell us that we can cover this at all. And also, sorry, the city council, excuse me. We need the city council to approve that we have the conversation. But we also, it seems like another risk that we could fall in is that we get that approved and then there's like a long review that could take months. So I'm just wondering if we kind of pair those requests together so that that's just not an option, because the city's also been getting the emails that are saying this needs to happen now. City council is getting those same emails. They're hearing from the community that this needs to be urgent. So I think we can ask for that. And I think we can do it in a way where it's just saying, not necessarily that there isn't a review, and the review might take a while, but that we're allowed to have the conversation around a draft ordinance as soon as we need.
Like simultaneous.
Yeah.
Simultaneous with the review.
Carrie, do you have a sense of what kind of process or what kind of staff time or deadline, timetable?
Not a full timetable. I will say that I have a meeting next week or the week after to do an initial book with city attorney, city clerk's office, etc. So, because this is not language that I speak and I'm super familiar with in terms of ordinance type of language, I don't have a really good sense of if there's a long process after that. I think that my hope would be then to bring back sort of initial thoughts or concerns, or maybe like, oh, we got to look into this a little bit further back to the subcommittee for some sort of dialogue, and then be prepared to bring something back to the fuller commission. I know that doesn't really, I can't exactly say a timeline. I guess what I'm saying is my hope is that it would be.
So if we just ask, does this statement, we read this statement, or we were hoping the statement includes working on an ordinance, or is it okay to work on an ordinance? And they say yes. If that goes on their consent calendar and they approve it, then we can, as a whole commission, look at the ordinance, even though it's still under staff review, or No, that would be, their yes would be contingent on the completion of staff review by definition, by policy, or is there anything?
Feeling like I can't answer that clearly because it might be incorrect.
Okay, so what if we just try to state as clearly as we can that we would like to, as a commission, we would like to, all of us together, look at the possibility of an ordinance, and we hope that could happen simultaneously to the staff review process.
Yeah, I would say the committee has drafted an ordinance and submitted it to staff, believing that it was within the authority that council gave to us under the language that we have up in the September 16th memo. We now understand that there's some question that has been raised about whether that language is sufficient to allow us to have done that, even though we said publicly for months before that that's what we intended to do.
No more tangent, back to the language, because it was good.
This is part of my motion.
Okay, so.
And we therefore would like the council to clarify whether we have that authority or not. And if we do have that authority, we would like to be able to have a discussion about that at the commission so that the public and the rest of the commission members can see what the proposal is and can advise us further. We recognize that we are only advisory and that the staff, of course, is maybe even more important in advising the city about the policies that the city council decides to adopt. So we understand the limits of our role.
Is this also part of the motion?
But yes, we would like to have that discussion, please, if we have the authority. So we'd like to clarify the authority, and we would like to be able to present to the public and to the rest of the commission the draft that the city now has.
Was that captured as a motion?
If that's what you so move.
Kevin, was that a motion?
Yes, please.
I would entertain a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we will hope to hear back from that, hopefully before we're planning our next meeting. So maybe as soon as our next meeting, we would be able to take a look at that as a commission. It is our hope. Okay, we move on to the long-range calendar. Long-range calendar is our final item. And lest there be any concerns, I will say public comment till the end of the long-range calendar. The only, aside from the things that are already very carefully marked, thank you, Carrie, as to what we would do every meeting, there are two things that I'm aware of that we might want to consider. We could specifically say now that we want to make sure we bring back the further drafted recommendations of the lived experiences subcommittee at our February meeting. I mean, Carrie and Kevin and I all know that we want to do that, but if we want to put that on the long-range calendar more officially, I suppose we could. And then the other thing I'm aware of is that our March meeting is scheduled for spring break, and we need to figure out whether or not that affects people. So comments on either of those two things. Comments on the first thing first. Do we feel the need to put that on the long-range calendar specifically, or you just want to?
I feel like we don't usually, we just move forward, we know we're going to cover it.
We know we're going to do it. Okay. All right. So will we have a quorum at our March meeting, which is during DJUSD and UC Davis spring break? I plan to be out of town myself.
I won't be here.
Raise your hand if you'll be here.
As long as they're-
So you don't know about the other folks so.
Yeah,
Well, and our other, two of our folks who aren't here are tied to the university, and their spring break occurs during that time too, right?
Right, Ellie, yeah. And yeah.
So I think it's probably safe to assume that we'll have.
so could we have suggestions at our February meeting of alternate March dates for a meeting?
That's a great idea.
Okay, and hopefully we'll have everybody here at the next meeting.